Thank you very much, Kilo. Ugo, do you have something to add?
Very little, but I think I can understand the question, to be fair. Um, Perhaps early on in my own career, I was able to identify, like just in NYC, that I wanted to do fintech and I wanted to do tech, basically. So, but I wasn't like, number one, I don't even think like the amount of briefs, if you were in a law firm that would be focused on fintech or tech, would even be enough to run the firm at that point in time. So I would say that yes, there's a need to actually be a generalist. Like, in fact, I don't think you can afford not to be, basically. Like, wherever you find yourself as a lawyer, you have to be a generalist, because when you eventually specialize and have like that linear focus, those expert advice that you would give would stem from your legal subject matter expertise in other areas, basically. So it's not even a choice thing. It goes with the flow. But also, if you've identified your interest early, say it's tech law, may start up, whichever name or nomenclature you want to put in the box, ensure you visit that interest while you're doing those other things, basically. So whether you're in litigation, whether you're in oil and gas, whether you're in maritime law, whether you're in IP, whether you're in entertainment or media, just keep babysitting that specific interest that you have, so that you don't lose it also, because it's in babysitting it that you're going to like spark more knowledge around it, or probably get more opportunities around it. But you have to be widely covered as a lawyer.
Thank you very much, Ugo, and thank you very much, Kilo. I hope everyone, the audience, got a bit of knowledge from their answers. But I guess stemming from what you said about making sure that you have, like when you are working in a law firm, and I think both of you said that it's important for you to have like a wide understanding of every area of law if you can. But stemming from what Ugo you said about ensuring that you speak up about your interest in the tech space. Um, that's great advice. But what other advice do you have for someone who would like to kickstart a career in tech and startup law?
Mm, what advice would I have for them? uh, I think while you're still appreciating like the practice of law across its very many parts, keep keep building the interest in that tech space. I think it's mediocrity to say after law school that I'm a tech lawyer, because what really makes a tech lawyer per se, it's still stemmed from all the expertise you have across other field, right? You could specialize and say you want to be a corporate commercial lawyer as opposed to being litigation. That's fine. But in that corporate and commercial law, it's not a one box. Like, there are many arrays of issues that fall in different other live areas. Like, I feel like law is like live in itself. You get the practice of law, because there are different buckets that you can cover, basically. So yes, if you're interested in tech law, read books that relate to it. Study, for instance, fintech thankfully is regulated. So you have a lot of regulations that guide that field. Study it. While studying it, study the practice of that particular sector. How does it work? How does the payments work? Those are normal resources available online. Like, you can't read the regulation and understand it without even understanding how that field works in itself. And tech in itself is even very broad, you get, because you have the IP angle, you have like the data angle, like you have messaging and information, you have payments, like, so it's even broad in itself. So you still need to identify or what you want, or the areas you want. And while identifying it, you still need to have like a grasp of the general law while you build knowledge over time. Do you get? But then if you're fortunate to have regulation in that particular field, study regulation, like know it so much that if someone calls you today with issues, you can advise them based off that regulation of the knowledge that you have, and follow the market. You have to also follow the market. And these are not really like law focused advice, to be very fair. It's just, if you have an interest, keep sparking the flame.
Thank you very much, Ugo. And I think I'd like to point out something that you said earlier. You mentioned that you also wrote a lot of articles focused on the tech space. So I think that that
Oh
is
yeah.
something that, yeah, that the audience
Yeah,
can
no,
keep in mind.
I definitely agree. Like you need to have a voice, right? And why
Yeah.
would someone probably say, well, what's your proof, basically? Like we're in the social media era, so like loud what you have, basically.
Mm.
But don't be a mediocre still, but like loud, like there should be content in it. So write as much as you want to, get involved in those areas, go to shows or events or symposiums that have to like focus on those areas and be very involved in it. And network also, to be fair, because that's part of networking for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ugo. So, Kayla, I'll just tweak the question a bit towards you. Of course, what advice do you have for young people or young lawyers who want to go into the tech space? But right now, you work at Meta. So I think people would love to know how your experience helped you get that role at Meta and what other people can do if they want to sort of break into that sort of role as well.
Um, thanks a lot, Zula. So I guess, giving you a tweak of the question, I'll have to answer twofold then. The first part of the question, which is advice to, I believe, specifically young lawyers. I, I would always say something, look, that there's a, and I mean, I believe I'm speaking to young African lawyers in this forum, so I'm just going to be as blunt as I can be. There is a sort of like a dichotomy in how young African and Nigerian lawyers approach sort of like, I'm trying to pick my words very carefully. Okay, there's a difference in how young African lawyers approach the scenario of technology law. In which case they want to hone their skills, they want to go in, understand regulation, understand what the regulatory bodies are saying, understand what the legal landscape is, develop their passion, develop their skills, grow to a certain level, then go in, right? And there's a fearlessness that occurs on the other side of the pond, which is that they have this passion for it. They go for internships, they jump right into right. Sorry, I was getting a bit of feedback. They go for internships, they jump right into the deep end of the pool. They're not so fussed about experience, because on that divide, they believe that experience is grown and not plucked. So you have, obviously you have different levels, and this is me now veering into my own role at Facebook. You have different levels, right? So you have people who come in as interns, people who have like 4 or 5 years experience coming in as counsels, slightly higher lead counsels, who lead on teams of counsels, and all this before you get to being an associate general counsel or a director or whatever. But speaking very specifically on the nitty of it, what I would always say to young lawyers, whether you're in Europe or you're in Africa, is that fearlessness to actually just go for what you want. And it goes with applying for internships, right? There isn't really a set rule that says you have to know everything to a large extent before you actually start doing it. Because in doing it in the first place and doing it unafraid, you start to learn even more. So looking at places where you want to go to, and this is something that I find a lot of technology-based companies are starting to encourage. At MTN, you have graduate trainee programs. And so you have people who are fresh out of law school with maybe a 1-year experience working within these programs, managing trainee programs across other technology companies as well. And these programs help young law students to actually just getting there in the fray and learn on the work, learn on the job, develop the passion while they're working on it without necessarily working through a ladder of experience, which is not to say that it's not valid and it's not vital. I'm very well aware that a lot of law firms as well, key law firms, whether it's Panuka, for example, or whether it's DLA Piper Africa or Lionel Ajayi, have very, very, very fantastic programs where they put young law students through the ropes. And you see these law students working within these working within these firms, going back to law school, coming back better equipped, working through the years of experience, and then finding their ways in technology. And recall that working as a lawyer in technology doesn't necessarily mean that you're working in a technology company. I'm always very keen to draw various lines or various pathways. You can work within the technology sector of a law firm. You can work within the commercial department of a tech company, whether you're working like I am in, say, infrastructure and technology or product advisory, whether you're working like Ugo within the fintech sector as a product counsel, or whether you're working as a senior counsel within any other technology company, whether it's Google, Twitter, or TikTok, for example. And so the key thing for me would always be matching your fearlessness with your passion. And when those two things combine, believe me, you're going to be applying to internships. You're going to be working your way through firms and everything. Writing articles is also fantastic. It's a fantastic way of putting yourself out there, and even getting people to recognize to an extent your expertise. But then also just working through the actual ropes, putting yourself within the scenario that you want to be in, and being unafraid to apply. One of the things that affects people a lot of times is feeling or thinking that certain roles are outside their reach. Of course, nobody's saying that if you're a 1 to 2 year experienced lawyer, you should be trying to apply for jobs that have like 10 to 12 year or it's 8 to 10 year specifications. I don't think any job should have 12 to anything about 12 years. It's anything about 8 years. It doesn't make sense. But you should be able to apply within the limits of your experience. And if you feel like you've acquired that much of it, if you feel like you're worth the position and you know what it entails, go for it. So I would always say, look, the fearlessness, matching with the passion, working through the ropes within the career you want to work in. Whether if you want to work in regulatory technology, Ugo has mentioned that he's written articles on the need for certain aspects of technology to have fantastic regulation. The reason they don't have that level of legal oversight is because not a lot of lawyers want to work within those spaces. But there are places you can work within those spaces, not just in Nigeria, but in other regions. But even looking at Nigeria, you have the NITDA space, you have CBN, you have the NCC. These are critical regulators within the technology space. Okay, and as technology evolves, there is a need for the regulation, for the law, for the codes of conduct to be able to keep up. Because if they don't, what you're going to have is very onerous laws, and that is something that we don't want. So, so just in a nutshell, what I've been hammering on all morning, the fearlessness and the passion and the desire to work within those areas. Trust me, chasing those internships, working within those areas till you've gotten to a certain sector. After that point in time, it's really just waves for the person. That's what I believe.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kilo. I hope the audience took the advice you've given them to just put yourself out there and not keep saying, oh, let me learn about this, let me learn about that. Sometimes you just need to apply. And okay, we're almost done with this section of the session. But quick reminder to the audience, please feel free to put your questions in the chat if you have any questions for Kilo and Ugo, and I'll be sure to ask them in the last 15 minutes of the session. But my last question for this session, for both of you again, I had so many more questions, but I just want to wrap it up so I respect your time and I respect the audience's time. But last question, what do you think has been the most challenging thing that you faced in the tech law sector and startup law sector? Ugo, you could go first.
There's a lot. Kilo just mentioned the fact that there's a gap when it comes to regulation. Fortunately and unfortunately, I work in a sector that is heavily regulated because it's payment and finance, and it could be favorable to some lawyers could probably experience it in a different way if they work in other technology sectors that are not heavily regulated, because then it's just all like it's vibes and inshallah and the normal like legal work you do basically. But there's that gap. So you find out that most times the regulators do not even really appreciate the roles that you play. And it's pretty different from when you're in a more developed climate where because of how advanced the technology companies there are, like the firms and the likes, they've been able to like get involved in creating like some level of regulatory involvement, like not 100% efficient, but like reasonable policies that would favor them. So like there's still that gap in Africa when it comes to regulation. And don't get me wrong, I don't think there's a world where regulation would outpace like technology or what it does. It will only play like shadow to it. But then I feel like our laws can be more technologically neutral in the sense that you're not telling me to bring paper, for instance, to submit a particular document when I don't even need to be physically available for that. Like those kind of neutrality that the law can provide, so that despite how you innovate on that particular area that the law is regulating, it can still be applicable. So I think there's that challenge, basically. But then if I go back and say it because it's a career hub, I would say that there's also, now it's even easier, but there's a time when it's difficult to probably get a lot of tech opportunities or tech roles as a lawyer. Easier now. I think like we are having that massive wave, but I think there was a point where it was difficult to have those opportunities. And you probably would just maybe have to settle for, even if you have a tech passion, you probably have to settle for more traditional roles, basically. So like those are two major challenges. But aside from that, I think it's great.
Thank you very much, Ugo.
Yeah, that's all.
Like, I know. Oh, sorry, Kayla. You want to go ahead? You can speak.
Oh no, I hadn't even started. Do you want to finish what you're saying?
Oh, I thought someone was saying something, but okay. So I was just saying that I know that in Nigeria it's hard, like as you said, regulation. There's a lot of regulation in your sector, which is in fintech. So that might be a bit of a challenge. But Kaylo, you work in the UK, so I'd like to know if like the challenges are a bit different for you. Well, I know that you work with like Africa and Middle East, like that's the sector that you work in, but what Ugo said a bit different for you?
Thanks. I'm going to, so I'm going to split my response into two. I'm very mindful that this is a sort of like a career led conversation. So I'm just going to look at challenges from that viewpoint and then just touch a bit on sort of the challenges I face, which some of them are quite high level, but then just for the sake of knowledge sharing. One of the things that I would say was a challenge early on in my career when I initially went in-house was the issue of impostor syndrome, which is simply feeling like the boots that you're wearing are a bit too big for you to fill in, and it can be frightening, particularly when you feel like the responsibilities are way beyond anything that you're prepared for. And I would always just say to young lawyers out there or lawyers in training that, look, there is nothing that you're given that the people giving these things to you aren't. They're very much aware of what your limits are. And personally, I would always say, don't put any limits to yourself, right? Just go right in and swim, wade through. There's always a concern sometimes over, these sort of roles. Do I need to be a first-class graduate? Do I need to be like one of the top shots in my cohorts or in my class to be able to get these roles? All those things are absolute myths. You get to a level where nobody's even remotely concerned about these things. Okay. Given that within the Nigerian sector, they would always say, oh, yes, a minimum of 2-1, a minimum of this, a minimum of that. Hopefully we get to a place where those sort of distinctions those sort of labels are taken down to allow people who have who don't just have the passion, but the actual skill set to be able to just scale through these doors. But never let those things be the barrier for entry into, what you want, essentially. One of the challenges that I would always say that, for me, when it comes to hitting the wall would always be imposter syndrome, number one. The initial fear that some of these roles were not for me, number two, and just that general fear that, look, why don't I just work within this role, and one day when I have enough experience, I can start applying for these other roles. Nonsense. So I would always just say, look, those challenges, because I have more experience now, I'm able to just look down and now and say, look, guys, forget about it. Just go deep dive into it. Speaking on the second part on some of the most challenging things I face within my sector, I would say Facebook is a large company. Meta, as it's known these days, it's a massive company, and there are different perceptions of how we run our operations a lot of times, particularly in Africa, where the trust level sometimes can be low, and and this is speaking generally across what I would call social media companies. We saw recently what happened with Nigeria and Twitter, even though a recent declaration by the ECOWAS court called the ban of Twitter, in a nutshell, illegal. But that's after the fact. The ban happened, and it was proof that, look, the government can pull the plug on people's abilities or people's voices at any time. But I would just say that, look, some of my biggest challenges is just trying to improve the trust factor, trying to ensure that there's a healthy marriage between legal and sort of like policy expectations in such a way that we're working very hard to be a very responsible firm, which means that our legal policies have to be very responsible as well, and ensuring that it trickles down, because a lot of decisions that we make in our day-to-day have immense impact, down to which countries we're able to respond to when they ask us for user data, down to being responsible to our external GNI people. And it's like drinking water from a fire hose. If you know if you know what the rush of water from a fire hose is, imagine drinking water from it. So it can be like that on your typical day, but like Ugo said, look, I just focus on working fast through prioritizing the issues, working fast through the solutions, and trying to develop solutions that have cascading effects, so that if I solve a problem today, I don't have to worry about solving it tomorrow. The solution is reproductive in a sense. So that just answered the second part of my question. And what my typical challenges is one major challenge, which is just ensuring this trust and just keeping the law within the responsible ambit.
Thank you very much, Kilo, and thank you very much, Ugo. I think, like I mentioned earlier, I had a lot more questions, but with your answers now, you both answered a chunk of the questions that I couldn't get to. But now we're going to go into the audience questions. I will try, because I think we have about like 10 minutes left, but I will try my best to rush through them so that everyone's question is answered. But first off, we have the first question from Jordan Murray of the University of Cape Town, who asks, how has the rapid development of social media impacted the technology law space? And how would you like to see the law change, expand, or develop in the coming years? So, Ugo, you can go first.
I would have said Kayla should go first. That's
okay. All right.
That's the area more.
All right. So Kayla.
Yeah, sorry. So if you could just run through the question very quickly again, please.
Okay, yeah. How has the rapid development of social media impacted the technology law space? And how would you like to see the law change, expand, or develop in the coming years?
Okay, look, see, we've echoed it a few times in terms of how regulation really needs to just keep up with what's happening. But what we've seen now is, let me call it technology law for the sake of using the term. What we see now is companies trying to work within existing legal pillars to ensure that they're not overstepping. So you have data protection laws, okay? You have increasing privacy demands and privacy policies being set up by governments. And what you see internal technology law doing is trying to work in such a way that social media isn't running away. There's a permanent and consistent handshake between social media and responsibility. And I'll give you a typical example. In the next 7 months, we're going to have several elections across Africa. We're going to have elections in Kenya in a couple of weeks. We're going to have elections in Angola also in a couple of weeks, in Senegal in a month or two. In Nigeria, we're going to have elections in February. So how does social media and technology law come to play? Essentially, you're looking at situations where you're being responsible in how you're monitoring misinformation, disinformation. You're looking at how the law essentially plays a good guardrail for how voices are regulated. Everybody has a voice, everybody can talk, but you don't want voices that incite violence, particularly in Africa, where every incitement is like a cinder, and today it's a matchstick, tomorrow it's a forest fire. So I would say that we're leaning more towards responsibility. Okay, so technology law is, on the regulator side, is working very hard to keep up, not as much, which is why you're seeing a lot of laws based off of guesswork. But on the internal side, you're seeing a lot more responsibility to just try and bridge that gap, essentially. So I would say that's really where we are right now in terms of the status of in-house technology regulations, external regulations, and the actual situation.
Thank you very much, Kilo. Okay, so I've just been informed that we have to take one panelist for, we can't ask both of you the questions just because of time.
Absolutely.
But the next question, thank you very much, Kilo. The next question, Ugo, I guess you can answer this, is how necessary is the technical knowledge for a lawyer interested in fintech law? Is it necessary to have basic knowledge of coding, or is the knowledge of law and regulatory compliance enough?
No, today I can't code. and I mean, Nigeria, or arguably Africa's biggest fintech payment company in the world. So you don't need to code. You don't need to get your hands dirty. I call it getting your hands dirty. Good money there, but no. But you should have an appreciation of this fintech space. You need to know like the roles that in the different value chain, and who the players are, and the roles that they play, and the stakeholders. Do you get? And that goes back to what we've talked about. If you like or have interest in a particular field, build it and understand it also, so you're not mediocre at the end of the day. So yes, you need to. And there are books. Once you begin to identify that, then there are courses, there are online blogs that you read that will give you first level knowledge as to the different players in the value chain, basically. And then from there, you can just take it up. But you don't need to code. You don't need to know programming languages and things like that.
Thank you very much. Ayola, I hope that answers your question. Now, Kayla, if you could please answer this question from Emanuela. And she says she has an interest in IP, but she's not good with tech. And she noticed that most tech lawyers are either good at web design, development, or that sort of stuff. The question is, can she isolate IP from tech? And also, must she be really observant with technology to be a tech lawyer, and to what extent?
That's a brilliant question, to be honest. Look, intellectual property is a huge part of law. It's essential. Essentially, it's a large lifeline of it, and it's a lifeline of tech. Okay, I think the focus should be on being very good in the various facets of IP law, and it's multifaceted. Whether you have trademarks or copyrights or patents or trade secrets or industrial designs, it is multifaceted. In fact, you'll find yourself in a scenario where there are people who are very good in trademarks, not so versatile when it comes to copyrights and patents. Okay, if she establishes herself as a fantastic IP lawyer, okay, going through in such a way that when she's woken up in the morning about situations around patents, what sort of inventions can be patented, what sort of into what bucket a software falls into, can it be copyrighted, what are the various examples of patent licenses, patent handshakes. You see situations like the Amazon one-click being used by Apple. she'll find that, or he or she will find that it's a scenario where you really can't even separate the two, and you don't even know when you find yourself deeply infused in technology. Okay, I would always say read up articles on how, take for example the patent wars between Apple and Samsung. Read up all the articles about that. Read up articles on how Google's was valued patents, Meta's patents in, say, take for example recent VR technology, the Oculus. Just articles like that will just bring you into that place where you start to enjoy the convergence between IP and technology, and you're not worried about the coding, like Ugo said. Let's leave that for people who are within the sector of whether it's data scientists or engineers or software engineers or whatever. If you're a lawyer who likes to code, fantastic, code away. Okay, I know lawyers who are excellent with computer language, but the truth is, look, if you love IP, focus on IP. Everything else will just fall in place. It's like worrying about being an athlete and losing weight. Okay, if you focus more on your performance, everything else is just going to fall in place. So I would just say to her, focus on IP, be good at it, be great at it, and all the facets of it. You're good.
Thank you very much, Kilo. Okay, so I apologize to anyone in the audience whose question I've skipped. I'm just trying to ask the questions that people are asking a lot. But next up, I'll move to Timulane's question. I think that if time allows, I think that both of you can answer this if it's possible. But it's, what do lawyers in the tech law space get to do, and who are the prospective clients? So Ugo, if you could just answer that.
I think that there are a lot, basically. It's like you bring out all your clients or bring out all the companies that have interface with technology. And because we're trying to put tech law into a bucket, although I'm not a fan of it, but bring out all the companies that interact with technology, and then you could probably say these are your potential clients. So, and you can begin to list whether it's telecommunications, they're interacting with technology in one way or the other. So those are potential clients. So just imagine a lawyer who is amassing so much information in telecommunication and ICT. That's a different ballgame on its own, and that's massive. Then you look at patents, which is now applicable to even non-technology companies or trademark or IP, basically. You get so those are like there are a lot of companies, if you want to look at it from that angle. Or you look at the payment sector now, which is fintech, that is bubbling with over how many hundreds of companies, even just in Nigeria. So you get there are a lot of opportunities. Or you look at like the social media companies like the TikToks, policy manager roles, and there are so many roles in-house and even in a law firm. Or from a new business perspective, a lot of international companies are coming into Nigeria to provide their services in Nigeria. And so if you're a lawyer, even if you're not even involved in technological law, we still provide guidance on the regulations that would need to be in place, and how they would need to ensure that their services or their businesses are in line with and compliant with those regulations, basically. So even CAC, that may look like something that is not necessarily crucial, becomes important at that point in time. So I think as long as a company interacts with technology, you're fine. You would always have opportunities, which goes back to what I was saying, that I don't think you probably see any traditional law firm or even any law firm in the world that would only focus on technology, because law is like Kelo said, it's like a tree. Like there's so many parts to it. So you don't necessarily put it in a box. Do you get? As the clients come, you see like different multifaceted areas that you would cover as a lawyer for them, basically. But now I would say that yes, if you even want to specialize only in tech, there's a marriage, but there's still a lot of opportunities there.
Thank you very much, Ugo. So, Kelo, I guess you could answer this part of the question. That is, what do tech lawyers get to do?
Well, I'll answer it from an in-house perspective, since the last few years I've really been in-house. I think Ugo's done a pretty good job covering it from a practice perspective. So I would say, look, when you're in-house, as an in-house counsel, your biggest client is really the company. So at that point in time, you're still working for a client. You're protecting the client. You're the first line of defense. So essentially what you're doing is you're looking through, you're working with your teams on ground, depending on how large the company. So let's look at, say, when I worked in country at MTN, right? So you're reviewing laws that you're working with your regulatory teams, reviewing laws that may or may not have an impact on your day-to-day business. You're looking at commercial litigation, for example. You're working through possible cases, existing cases, working through possible defenses with your outside counsel. At that point in time, your external counsel will become your best friend, because that's where you're coming from, really. You're looking for the best lawyer suited for the best sort of issues. You're answering a lot of questions because you're working with a lot of people who aren't lawyers, but who are very intelligent and who need answers very quickly. Yeah. So you're working with them, providing a lot of answers, and you're anticipating these questions as well. So you're preparing, you're constantly preparing talking points in your head. You're constantly avoiding situations where your company, for example, is put in a rather uncomfortable position. You're constantly helping policy teams get into conversations where they're putting forward the company's voice, because essentially you know what the company's voice is from a legal standpoint. And you're also advising companies on new products, for example. What are the issues that might happen with these new products coming into the market early, or features of new products? If WhatsApp, for example, is releasing a new feature, what are the issues it's going to encounter? Are there privacy issues? Are there data disclosure issues across various countries? Would there be issues releasing it in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Algeria, in Senegal, in South Africa? You're thinking about all these things, and you're constantly giving feedback to engineering teams. These guys are working very quickly. There's simply no time for them to pause to be concerned about any of these contingencies, which is why they have you as an in-house counsel, for example. So when you're working as a technology lawyer, again, a bucket that I'm no fan of, but when you're working as a technology lawyer, you are constantly on your feet. You're moving fast, and at the same time, you're moving with, using the Nigerian parlance, with common sense. So you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're giving wrong advice. And even when you do make a mistake, you're correcting yourself very quickly. You're looking for contingencies. You're always presenting business savvy options. You don't want to make the mistake of thinking like a lawyer. You want to be able to think like a business person, because whichever company you're working for, except it's a non-for-profit, and even when it's a non-for-profit, you're thinking sustainability. But except it's a non-for-profit, you're looking at ways they can achieve what they want to achieve, still within the ambit of law, without always saying no. Right? No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. You're looking for, how can we do that? Right? How do we do that? And when you're working within a technology company as a counsel, you would always know that, look, no problem is someone else's problem, right? So if a ball is dropped by someone else, look, you're picking it up at one point in time. You're constantly mopping up areas with puddles of issues, just using the mopstick of solutions in a nutshell. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Sadly, our time is up, but I'd like to thank Kelo and Ugo again for their time, for their knowledge. And I'm sure, and again, I apologize to the audience if we couldn't get to your question. We're on a time limit, so we just had to pick out certain questions. But thank you for participating. There's some comments in the chat box if Ugo or Kelo would like to read them later on. But again, thank you very much, Kelo. Thank you, Ugo, for your time, for your knowledge and your expertise. And I hope that everyone enjoyed this session. And I learned a lot about tech law, and I hope that other people learned about it as well. So yes, thank you again. Now I'll be handing over to Ewalua to continue with the career summit. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Zulu. Thank you so much, Ugo and Kelo. That was a really amazing session. Thank you so much. I did learn a lot, and I'm sure our participants learned a lot too. So now we'll be moving straight to our next session on media and entertainment law, and I'll be calling on the moderator for that session, Amanda and Monica. Amanda, please take it from here.
Thank you so much, Awalua. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Media and Entertainment Law session. As Awalua said, my name is Amanda Agbonika, an intern at the Lex Lata Center for International Law and Comparative Constitutionalism in Africa, and I'll be your moderator for this session. So today we have with us two amazing speakers, but before I introduce our speakers, please, participants, be reminded to keep your microphones on mute at all times. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat so they'll be asked later on. So our first speaker is Ms. Oluyemisi Falaye. Oluyemisi Falaye is Nigeria's foremost entertainment lawyer. She graduated with her LLB degree from Olabisi Onabanjo University in 2004 and was called to the Nigerian bar in 2005. After which she began her career as associate counsel at Denton's Acres Law, a top-tier law firm in Nigeria. At Acres, she helped start up the sports media and entertainment law group of the firm, which she headed till she stopped working as a senior associate at the firm. She has worked with a myriad of celebrity clients across the entertainment industry, the likes of Zlatan, Kiss Daniel, Cuppy, Simi, Waje, Vector, Toke Makinwa, and Shola Shobowale, to mention a few. She now works as the head legal and business development at the Temple Company, Nigeria. Aside from entertainment law, Ms. Oluyemisi's core competence includes a robust experience in areas such as intellectual property, immigration, corporate commercial, and company secretarial matters in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Ms. Yemisi, for joining us here today. Welcome.
You're welcome, Amanda. Thank you for having me as well. It's a great pleasure.
So our next speaker is Ms. Amanda Uzoagba. Amanda Uzoagba is an experienced entertainment lawyer with over 10 years experience of working in the entertainment industry. She graduated with her LLB from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, in 2016 and was called to the Nigerian bar in 2017. She has since then worked with various brands, creators, entertainers, and media companies across Nigeria and Africa to help them protect their works and monetize them. She currently works as senior legal consultant at Goldwist Consults, as legal executive at Ebony Life Group, and as an entertainment law tutor at the Modoc Institute of Arts, while serving as the Institute's Chief Operation Officer. Ms. Amanda is an award-winning author of Let's Dance, a book which breaks down the legal aspect of the dance industry. She co-hosts the Legal Avenue podcast and owns a YouTube channel through which she drives conversations on various areas of law, including legal issues affecting the entertainment and creative industry. Ms. Amanda is a creative business consultant, public speaker, career coach, and legal educator. Thank you so much, Ms. Amanda, for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Okay, so we'll go straight into the question and answer session now. My first question is, what motivated you to go down the path of media and entertainment law? It's a pretty unconventional path, so what led you there? Ms. Amanda, you can go first.
Okay. Hi, thank you so much for having me here, Amanda, and the entire people of Lex Lata Center. So what motivated me to go into entertainment law? I started off in the industry. So I guess it was only common or only okay for me to go into that when I was called to bar. I was already in the industry as a blogger, as a PR person, and I love the industry. I love everything it holds for. And I'm not a big fan of litigation. So when you're done with that, when you finish law school and you're evaluating the practice area to go to, it was simpler to start from an industry that I'm already used to, an industry I already know, and an industry I love. So that's it.
Thank you so much. Ms. Yemisi, could you please share with us what motivated you to practice entertainment law?
I mean, right from time, I'd always dreamt of being in the space, from when I was quite little. And I also know that I developed friendship with a couple of entertainers at a very early stage of my life, on-air personalities, actors. Then there weren't really lots of artists, performing artists then. So I developed friends mainly within the media space and the acting space. And when I started practicing, and when I got called to bar and started working at Denton's Acres Law, then I was part of the general group of the corporate commercial department of the firm. And we did, I did a lot of intellectual property law. I did, core corporate commercial law as well. And within that period, I realized that I had a flair for, I had more flair for intellectual property, which is the crux of entertainment. Led to another, and boom, I found myself practicing entertainment law full time.
Thank you so much. So I noticed how it seems like with the both of you, you knew very early on that entertainment law was something that you were interested in. So I wonder, do you think that it's ideal for an undergraduate or a young professional to specialize early in entertainment law, or is it better to just maintain an open mind or practice widely?
Who should go first, Amanda or me?
Miss MC, you can go.
Okay, I would advise that a young lawyer should start off with entertainment law. When I was growing as a lawyer, I did everything apart from litigation and criminal law, and perhaps energy law. So my firm is actually split into four major departments. My firm there, Denton's Acres Law, is actually split into four major departments: the litigation, corporate commercial, energy law, and company nominees. I did almost everything in corporate commercial law, from intellectual property to company secretarial to taxation to all encompassing. So my advice is for you to get rooted in all the forms of law, all the aspects of law before you now specialize. Perhaps, I would call it a mistake, even though I don't really see it as a mistake. Perhaps the mistake that I made then was not to delve into litigation, because I've never, apart from the day I was called to bar and another day that I did a photo shoot, I've never worn my wig and gown, so, and I won't advise any upcoming lawyer to do the same. You need to, have a taste of all of it and know the one that best suits your taste bud, and then go for it.
Thank you so much for that. Miss Amanda, please, do you have anything to add?
So I do agree with her, what she did. And personally, I didn't find entertainment law earlier on. Like, it took like a year or two after court before I went into the practice area. But I'm proud to see younger lawyers, those in university, those in law school, picking interest in entertainment industry. So what I will only add to what she said is, while you're still going through other practice area, because you might be surprised, when you go into bank, you might love banking more than you love entertainment law. While you're doing that, if you're still convinced that you want to be an entertainment lawyer, take out time to learn and understand the industry itself. You can't just, it might be a bit hard for you to just switch from one practice area to another practice area without having a concrete, let me not say concrete, but at least a legal and industry knowledge of how the industry works, especially here in Nigeria, and not just to the legal aspect, if possible, other areas, other manpowers, other people that are involved in the industry, making the industry grow. Just understand what each person brings to the table and how the industry works. But yes, definitely try out other practice area. before you settle for entertainment law?
Okay, thank you so much. My next question is, what exactly does a media and entertainment lawyer do? Ms. Yemisi, could you please walk us through a typical day in your life as an entertainment lawyer?
So I start my day obviously by waking up. As soon as I wake up, I freshen up, I grab my laptop, grab my handbag, and I go off to work. When I get to work, I review agreements, actors' agreements. If there's a movie project, for instance, I draft, review agreements for the project, actors' agreements, crew agreements, pre-production agreements, basically. If there's an artist that is about to release a song, if there's a featured artist on the track, I draft the featured artist agreement. Obviously, there's going to be a producer. I draft the producer agreement. If there's a songwriter aside the performer, I draft a songwriter agreement. And then there's a split sheet to know the rights of each of the parties. There's a record label that wants to sign an artist. I draft the record label agreement. If there's an artist that wants to get signed on the record label, I review the record label deal or record label agreement on behalf of the artists. I negotiate deals. If my client if a brand is trying to get my client on board for an endorsement deal, I negotiate deals on a regular basis, depending on whose side I'm on. I use my legal dagger. I take 1 hour break to eat, if it's possible, to freshen, let my brain cool off. I network. There's an event that I need to attend in order to broaden my horizon, in order to spread my tent and meet new people. I attend events. I speak like I'm speaking now. At the end of the day, perhaps sometimes 12 a.m., sometimes 1 a.m., I come to bed to sleep. And then sometimes let me leave it to legal. But the truth is, if you're a practicing entertainment lawyer, if you want to distinguish yourself, you need to go beyond the legal part. So I would tell you about me sleeping at 3 a.m. 2 days ago because I had to attend a listening session for a client who is trying to determine the next song he wants to release. That's me, a typical day. Sometimes I forget to eat dinner, by the way.
Thank you so much. That was very insightful. Ms. Yemisi, from what you said, it sounds like sometimes your duties as an entertainment lawyer may overlap with the duties of a manager. So I wonder, where do you draw the line?
So I always say to people that the currency that I use to live my life is a currency of trust. I buy stuff with trust, and I sell stuff with trust. I buy life with trust, and I sell myself with trust. And so because of that, a lot of my clients tend to make me do everything for them. So aside from doing the legal work for them, I find myself playing the managerial role. I find myself even delving into their relationships, their personal lives, their families, sometimes a stylist, all of those things. If you are good at what you do, if you're a trustworthy person, if you're not a lazy person, if you're willing to explore things, if you don't want to be put in a box, then you will find yourself actually playing more roles than the legal role that you've been employed to do. But the truth is, personally, people see me beyond being a lawyer. I'll tell you a very quick story. I met Zlatan through Olamide. Olamide was the one that, introduced Zlatan and I, obviously to be his lawyer. And a couple of months or perhaps a year after I started working with Zlatan, Olamide said to me, he saw me and he said to me, "Oh, sis, I see that you've been doing beyond the legal work that I recommended you for to Zlatan." And, that gave me joy because it's obvious that everybody's seeing the work being done. Conclusively, it is always best not to box yourself, especially if you're in the entertainment world. Don't box yourself. There's nothing wrong with exploring as long as you have a focus. There's a focus, there's a main goal. Once you have that main goal, there's nothing wrong with delving into other minor goals just to show the world how versatile you can be.
Okay, so in order to distinguish ourselves, we'll need to go the extra mile. Thank you very much for that. Miss Amanda, please, could you share with us what a day in your life is as legal executive at Ebony Life and with every other thing that you're doing? Are there any differences between your experience and what Miss Yemisi shared?
I don't think there's any much difference between what she shared and what my typical day is like. Apart from waking up in the morning and being angry that I'm an adult and I have to leave bed to go to work, I think that part plays a role. But then another part of my day is your artists and the people that you're representing. Just keep an open mind that, like she said, you're going to, if you don't box yourself in, you're going to see yourself providing more than the services of an entertainment lawyer. So just be open to answering calls till 11 p.m. to 12 for one thing or the other. You just need to be, at some point, to be that go-to person beyond just beyond just being a lawyer. Do you get? So in my own way, or in my own belief is that even if you're an entertainment lawyer, don't be a lawyer. Be more of, you're in the entertainment industry. There's no one way of doing things. So build your own way of doing things and make it work for you. Personally, I try not to dive into management. So the best I can do is suggest a manager for you. I can provide those services, but it's more like, okay, I'm providing those services because I am free enough to provide that services at the moment. Do you get? Not that I'm both your lawyer and your manager. So I try to demarcate a bit and ensure that, okay, I'm getting you a manager that is going to do this. Now, me doing this other thing for you is just because I'm in the right place to help you, or I'm in the right place to influence your career and do that thing for you, or to negotiate or to speak to someone about something that's not relating directly to my services to you, because we're all a family. If you succeed, I succeed. If your client is succeeding, trust me, more people will come to you. You're going to get more clients because they believe that you have a very huge influence. So you want your clients to succeed. So my day is typically like a day. I try my best to sleep before 12 because I'll go to work the next morning by 8. But yeah, it's basically the same thing.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amanda. Before we proceed, participants, please remember to drop your questions in the chat if you have any, so that they will be asked later. So, Ms. Amanda, apart from being an entertainment lawyer, you're also a creative yourself. And I wonder, does that impact your practice of entertainment law in any way?
The way it influences, yes, it does, in 2 ways. Number one, to an extent, you understand the creator more than just a lawyer, because you, to an extent, you are a creator. So you're able to detect some of the issues that they are going to have, that they're having, and they're likely going to have in the near future. The second way it helps me is that, trust me, the entertainment industry, a lot of people in the industry don't want to relate to the lawyer. So they want that person that can come down to their level, speak to them like man to man, explain stuff without any legal jargons and all of that. And that's what I stand for. Do you get? So it helps to that extent, because I can show up and then I'm speaking to you, creator to a creator, and at the same time, I'm telling you what you need to do to protect yourself better. And then there's a better relationship than showing up maybe with suits or with the whole lawyer look, and then they look at you and they're like, okay, there might be a bit of a wall between you and them when communicating on that level. So yes, it does help. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that everybody must be a creator or a creative to be able to provide services to the entertainers and to people in the entertainment industry. But I'm saying, like, to my own, it helps. The other people that are in the industry that are not creators, all they do is just to, like I said, understand the industry and understand how it works and understand the jargons and relate to them on that level, not being a lawyer, just relate to them on the level that they're on.
Thank you very, very much. That was very elaborate. So, Ms. Yemisi, could you please tell us what you think are the top personal qualities that an entertainment lawyer must possess to become successful?
Number one, hard work. You must be a very hardworking person. You can't afford to be a lazy person. I want to do entertainment law. I want to do anything in life. I mean, I want to succeed at anything in life, as a matter of fact. I don't know if you remember, I told you 2 days ago, I slept at 3 a.m. That same day, I had a 10 a.m. So I'd woken up as early as 7:30, ready for my 10 a.m. So you can't afford to be a lazy person. You have to be very hardworking. And then you have to have, your pursuit for knowledge must be top notch. You must be hungry for knowledge. You must be a reader. You have to read, no matter. You have to always want to read. Your pursuit for knowledge must be top notch. And then number 3, you have to ensure that you are knowledgeable in all areas of law, no matter how minute it is. Entertainment law is not, there's nothing like entertainment law, so to speak. Entertainment law doesn't stand alone. Entertainment law comprises different types of law. So you have to keep yourself abreast in these other areas of law so that when the need arises to use your knowledge in all of these areas of law, you are not lost. And then you have to be sociable. You have to be a sociable person. You have to be able to mix. That's one quality that has really helped me. I'm not the type that would not want to go to club. I'm not the type that would not want to party or attend events. The only thing I will not do is smoke and drink. Nobody can compel me to do that. So you have to be sociable. You have to be friendly. You have to you have to learn to network so that because when you go out, you meet people, people that know you, talk about you. And I'll give you maybe a very quick example. I was at a movie scene with another client, and Bisola Ayola was on the scene. She was a part of the actors, and then there were other actors, like 5 or 6 other actors in a room. I went out, I stepped out briefly, and by the time I came back, I noticed that the countenance of everyone, all other actors in the room changed towards me. They started to rev me. They started to, say nice things about me. I started to just hail me, and I was really wondering what happened. So I called the client that I went with aside and asked her what happened. And she said to me, oh, Bisola told them that I'm a badass entertainment lawyer. I kid you not, the remaining actors got my contact. They wanted to work with me. So that's the power of networking. That's the power of wanting to mix. That's the power of going out. And finally, there's a point that I was going to make. You have to learn to zip your lips. You have to learn to, confidentiality is key. You'll be exposed to so many crazy information. You'll be exposed to so many facts about your clients. You have to keep your mouth shut. You can't afford to tell one client about the other client. You see what I mean? Because trust, these guys usually have trust issues. If you mess up in the area of trust, then trust me, you've lost it all. Amanda will tell us the remaining.
Thank you very much. Ms. Amanda, please, what do you have to add to that?
I think she has covered it all. About you being social. At the same time, let's say be open-minded. I think most of the issues that I've had people in the industry complain about the lawyers, some of the lawyers is, like I said, being too loyally. So you need to be, she mentioned about being social and being open to network. So that basically covers it. I think she mentioned it, or you need to be hardworking. You need to also, if you're joining the industry because you believe that it's all glitz and glamour, you're going to leave as fast as you entered. So you need to be ready to work. Apart from being hardworking, you need to understand that you have to go over and beyond for the people that you're working with, for the people that you're providing services for. So it's not all about showing up and knowing celebrities and all of that. Yeah, like you said, you're going to come across a lot of informations that are also like mind-blowing. So you just need to be open-minded to work with anybody. You're going to see a lot of characters you're going to work with. So you just have to keep an open mind, be social enough, open to network, and open to travel too as well. Yeah, so.
So with all the talk of being social, does that mean that people who are not extroverts have no chance at all as succeeding in entertainment law?
I don't think they don't have a chance. It's just that you need to put yourself out there. So personally, a mix of introverted nature and extroverted nature. So sometimes I could be extremely quiet, or sometimes I could be extremely social, depending on the atmosphere. So you just need to be conscious about certain things. Do you get, oh, I'm here, I need to network. So even if you don't like going out, you can be careful about picking events because you have to be there for your clients. So you can't be the type of lawyer that your client need you to show up to 2 or 3 places and you say no, back to back. Do you get? But then everybody understands that it's not everybody that has a high social battery. So once in a while, you need to recharge. So in as much as you think you're not a social person, just keep an open mind. Like I say, it's not as if you're not social, you cannot succeed in the industry, you cannot be there. But I think there are things you can learn. You can learn to network and you can learn to pretend to be social, I guess. So yeah, you just have to find a way to make it work, balance it out for yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Yemisi, what advice would you give to a student or a young professional who wants to pursue a career in entertainment law?
So it's just a summary of everything we've been talking about earlier. Obviously, for starters, ensure that you take intellectual property law seriously in the uni. Corporate commercial law. Is there anything like corporate commercial law in uni? I don't know. Maybe company law. Take it seriously. No, I take it back. Take all your courses seriously and graduate with a good grade, but pay particular, attention to the courses that are related to entertainment. And then during your holidays, go for internship in law firms that have an active entertainment law group, where they actually practice entertainment law. There are a couple in Nigeria, but Denton Zekas Law is number 1. We are the pace setter, proudly. I mean, even though I no longer work with the firm, but I'm still proud of what we achieved when I was there. And then upon graduation, work in a law firm again that practices entertainment law so that you can be well-grounded. And while at it, ensure that you delve into other areas of law. Do a lot of research. Familiarize yourself with what is obtainable in the other parts of the world where entertainment is a big deal. For instance, the US, the UK, Canada, France, South Africa, Kenya. Familiarize yourself with what is obtainable in these areas in terms of entertainment. Luckily, copyright is global, it's universal. So to a very large extent, what is obtainable in the US that are not specific to US laws are usually obtainable here in Nigeria. So that's why you need to do a lot of research. Read, and ensure that you become a better lawyer. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. MC.
Before I go, apologies, before I go, have a mentor. You need a mentor. Someone who is already doing what you want to do. Follow the person's life, follow the person's practice, so that you don't have to make the mistakes the person has made.
Thank you very much for that. Ms. Amanda, could you please share with us some of the challenges that you face as an entertainment lawyer and how you overcome them?
So I think one of the biggest challenges you're going to get first is I started off on my own. I didn't start with the law firm, so I had to find my clients myself. So you might struggle a bit with getting people to give you a chance to prove what you know. Do you understand? Although it wasn't so hard for me because I was already in the industry. All I just needed to do was to tell them, okay, yes, I'm switching from being a PR person to being a lawyer, and I know this stuff. So yes, getting clients could be a bit tricky, but once it starts off and there's a there's like, what's the word? There's a trail of your success, of people that you've worked with, or you work with one or two people, they'll definitely refer you to other people. And once that picks up, it keeps moving. Another challenge that I faced a bit was so legal knowledge. Now, one thing you should know is that Nigeria, the industry is a very somehow place. Do you get? It's not everything that you read in theory that applies the way it's meant to apply. Do you understand? So it was a bit tough for me because when I started off, I made few mistakes based on, okay, these are legal knowledge, this is what I read, this is how it works. But then that's why I talked about you understanding the industry itself, different from what you've learned or what you read online, or you listened in a podcast, or you took in one course or the other. Do you get? It's necessary for you to, if like Miss Amy said, undergo like internships in a proper firm with entertainment law structure. It helps because you realize that number one, it's faster for you to learn how the industry works when you're actually working in it than when you're learning from the outside. And then you get to understand that it's a bit different. We have our own Nigerian way of doing things and going about certain things. The second, another challenge that I faced was trying to balance. Another challenge that I faced was trying to balance off the entertainment industry, like me providing services in the entertainment industry and me being a lawyer. I know I struggled with that at first. Like, oh, lawyers are not supposed to do this based on RPC, you're going to learn in law school and all of that. But with time, I kind of settled into it. If you're entering the industry, mind that you're going to make a lot of money. It's not going to happen overnight. That doesn't happen fast. You have to hustle a bit before that happens. So I think that's basically it's an easy process to an extent. It's just like Miss Amy said, get a mentor, align yourself with a company or an entertainment law firm, or a law firm that has entertainment law practice in it, and then you take it up from there. It's easier for you to dive into the process and the industry and the practice area from that point. Do you get? So yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Amanda. Ms. Yemisi, do you have anything to add to that?
She said it all. What can I add to what Amanda, the guru, has said? Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. I have so many other questions, but because of time, we'll have to move into the questions from the audience. So the first question here is for Ms. Yemisi. from Shailene Eze. And this person asks, is there any strategy you utilized in order to dabble into the different ventures of law before specializing? And in addition, how many years of studies does this generally take?
I mean, I'll start with the second question. There is no, hard and fast rule to, there's no specific year. You just have to keep reading and reading and reading and reading. I'm almost 20 years at the bar, if my math is correct, from 2005 till date. I am still reading. I am still learning. I am still teachable, just what I mean. So it's endless. There's no specific period of time within which you have to learn. You just keep learning. The first question was it again? Can't remember.
Okay, so the person said, is there any strategy that you utilized in order to dabble into the different ventures of law before specializing?
There is no strategy. Well, perhaps the only strategy is to be a good lawyer, to be an excellent lawyer. You can't work at Denton's Acres Law and not be excellent. See what I mean? So you are exposed to the law. You need to take all opportunities very seriously. So you don't be a lazy lawyer. Don't stay away from work. Don't shy away from work. Once there is work, go for it. While you are working, learn what you're doing. So before you know it, you're already an expert.
Okay, thank you very much. Shailene, I hope this answers your question. Ms. Amanda, you can help us with this one. So Simi asks, are there any key differences between being an entertainment lawyer and being a media lawyer? If so, what are the different paths to those careers?
No, an entertainment lawyer covers all areas of the entertainment industry, but then what you find out that people that are music lawyers, so they specialize just in music industry. But when you say an entertainment lawyer, you need to be versed in the music industry, the dance industry, the movie industry, every industry that is involved in the entertainment industry. But everything is still the same practice.
That one needs to be fixed because I want to get my teeth done. Like I want to get
it's still the same practice. The only difference is that you decided that you want to be in the music industry or you want to be in the movie industry. But it's still the same practice area. It's still the same knowledge you need. It's still the same industry. Just that you're deciding, okay, I want to deal with only radio, multimedia guys. I want to deal with only music guys. I want to deal with everybody. So it's literally the same knowledge you need and the same, like say, training.
3 levels higher than whatever I had before.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Amanda. So, Ms. Yemisi, someone here is asking for advice on how to go about networking because you mentioned networking. So the person is asking, how do you network in different spaces and where do you typically locate this opportunity as an undergraduate?
You mean, like Amanda said earlier, one satisfied client begets another. So you have one client by chance or by whatever, and you satisfy that client. For instance, a performing artist. That client will go into the studio to record another song and will chat up with the producer or the studio engineer and talk about how good you are as a lawyer, and the producer will pick interest. The producer would have a record label boss and gist his record label boss about one badass lawyer. And boom, the record label boss will invite you. This artist will go for a show, perform at a show, be in the green room where other artists are performing, and he'll be talking about you. And those artists will want to contact you. Like my own case, you will follow an actor to a movie scene to shoot a movie. Other artists, other actors are there. Your client is telling those other actors that you're a badass lawyer, and boom, they all want you to be their lawyers. that's how it spreads. That's how that's how it goes. I forget the second question, sorry.
The second question is, where do you locate these opportunities as an undergraduate?
Well, so as an undergraduate, get close to, so for instance, if you intern in my office, the Temple company, I always go for gigs. I always have one concert or the other, one event or the other that I attend. If you become my guy, you go with me, perhaps, and you start to do your networking. If I have a client, if I have a meeting in the office, if you sit with me for the meeting, don't be a lazy junior lawyer that will not want to take minutes of meetings, and because of that, you will not attend meetings. If you sit at the meeting, after the meeting, you be courteous towards the client, talk to the client, chat the client up. Perhaps the client comes with his or her manager, talks to the manager, become the manager's friend. Before you know it, you will be everywhere.
Okay, thank you very much. Miss Amanda, this question is for you. So Shailene says, you seem to still retain a sense of humor, which makes me question how you balance having your personal life, whereby you can be jolly, etc., and your work life. I've noted in law that there is a stigma that practitioners do not have a personal or family life, as work compresses this. So would you agree with this statement?
It's possible for you not to have a personal life. Do you get? But if you're talking about having an active social life, merely by being in the entertainment industry, you have an overactive social life. So you get to go out, you might even get tired of it at some point. But having a personal life and having to be there for people that actually matter in your life and family has to take an extra step of you being intentional about it. You heard Missy mention that, oh, she slept around 3 and she had early morning the next day. You can't have all of that and still, you might find it difficult to have all of that and still be able to remember to call your parents or call. It happens to me, even without having that much load on my table, but you need to be intentional about it. So me, I work Monday to Friday typically. Saturday, I use Saturday to handle most of the clients I have private practice area and 1 or 2 things I've had sleep up. Sunday is my time. That thing that is going to disturb me Sunday, it has to be deep. So it's either that thing is something that's bringing that money immediately, or it has to do with like my clients personally, and it's not something that I can postpone to Monday. If not, I've put out Sunday to be my personal time. I go to church, I come back, I visit my best friend, we chill, I call my parents, although they are the ones almost calling every time, but at least Sunday's time, I know that I take out my own time to call them and find out, oh, is everybody okay? Because they are not here in Lagos with me. They are in the East, I'm here in Lagos alone. I go out, I try to sleep very well and rest, because by Monday, the stress starts again. Sometimes that Sunday, I get to still work. But the difference is that Saturday is like an extra work day like Friday. Why Sunday for me is the work I'm doing is based on, okay, fine, I just have to do this. Not because, oh, I've picked it as a work day. So you have to be extra intentional. That notion that lawyers don't have a personal life is true. Most lawyers don't. Most lawyers don't. But if you're intentional about it, there's nothing you can't be able to maintain. It might be a bit difficult. You might not be up to date. You might go 2 weeks without seeing the people that matter or even calling them. But if you're intentional about it, within the whole chaos and everything, you still take out time to like keep body and soul together. But if you're talking about social life, you go tired.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Amanda. Miss Yemisi, please, could you help us answer this? Phoebe asked if entertainment lawyers get involved in litigation frequently.
Absolutely. Now that most people are now aware of their rights, agreements fly here and there. Some people still have coconut head. They will not, they will breach provisions of agreements. and all of those things. So just like any other area of life, there's litigation, disputes every day, and it will be good for you to be able to present your client in court, for litigation matters. So yeah, entertainment lawyers to always litigate, but I don't, and I don't regret it.
Okay,
And to Jamie said, sorry, you need to, yes, education is part of entertainment law practice, but like I don't see how we can count this. Me, I left mine in the East when I moved to because I'm not count. So what you can do is to find their litigators and like litigation lawyers that are vested in entertainment law. Their entertainment lawyers that love going to court. Have them in case this comes up. You can always bring them on board. I'm a big fan of having different components coming to work. I hardly do all the work myself. Do you get? So if there's a litigation pending and you've tried all the bits you could do try out of court and solve the problem outside court through other medium, and it doesn't work. You just rope in the litigator and they pick it up from there. Me, I don't like court, so I'm not going to court.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So litigation is a part of entertainment law, but you don't necessarily have to practice it. Okay, so I'm sorry if I haven't taken your questions, but we're working with a time constraint. So we've come to the end of the media and entertainment law session. Thank you so much to Miss Yemisi and Miss Amanda. I've learned so much from you today, and I'm sure everyone in the audience has taken so much away. So,
thank you again for having us.
Thank you. So I'll hand over to Ewalua now to move us into the next session.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Miss Oluyemisi. Thank you, Miss Amanda. That was a very honest and insightful session. I love the fact that our panelists really took us into, like they opened us up into their lives and how things are really going so that we can have a balanced picture. And I think that's one thing that I really appreciate. So now we'll be taking a 5-minute break before we move on to our next session of particular applications. So see you in 5 minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So now we'll be going to our session on impactful applications. And I would like to invite the moderator for this session in the person of Ayotunde Abiodun, an intern at the Lex Lata Center. Ayotunde, please take it from here.
Thank you so much, Ewa. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ayotunde Abiodun. I'm an intern with the Lex Lata Center for International Law and Comparative Constitutionalism, and I'll be your moderator for this session. Interestingly, we're having just one panel for this session, and it promises to be so insightful. And our panel is no other than Adefuluke Adeyemo, who is a human resources specialist at Oladiwa Ajayi Law Practice. She has about 6 years of experience in human capital management. Prior to her role in legal services, she has worked in the retail industry and served several consulting clients in the fintech, agriculture, hospitality, and food industries. She is also passionate about people strategy, organization development, change management, people analytics, and talent management. She holds a bachelor's degree in economics from Obafemi Awolowo University and is also an associate with the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, and she holds several certifications with the academic to innovate human resources. Thank you so much, Adefuluke Adeyemo. It's so good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone.
So we'll just delve into question and answers immediately.
Okay.
So Adefuluke, what qualities does a top law firm like Oladiwa Ajayi Law Practice look out for in applicants?
Okay, so I wouldn't say this necessarily is specific to just tier one law firms. So generally, law firms, what they look out for would include good credentials, good grades, I mean, and that includes you being best graduated, you being a first-class student, being a 2-1 graduate, and in some cases, exceptional tutors. And same applies to law school as well. So you having those good grades from law school, but also not, because we also do not want to dispute that there are some irregularities in our educational system. So regardless of the grade you graduate with from uni, you can always make up for it from law school. But aside grades, because ordinarily your grades would count as knowledge, being an entry-level candidate. But aside grade, you would also have skills and attitude. So your skills would typically cover communication skills. Are you articulate? Could cover mental clarity. Do you have clarity of thought? And are you able to communicate what you're thinking? It could also cover you being detail-oriented. So do you pay attention to detail? And as for attitude, it could cover you being conscientious in a sense. It covers you being committed to learning. Are you continuously improving yourself? Do you have grades? Are you resilient? Are you hardworking? Because trust me, in those top tier law firms, those things are necessary. You have to be hardworking. So are you hardworking? Are you responsible? Can you persevere? Because it's usually quite a stretch working in those type of law firms. So can you persevere in a sense? So typically 3 things: knowledge, skills, and attitude. Those are the key things that we look out for.
Thank you so much. There you go, audience: knowledge, skills, and attitude. I'll implore members of the audience to please take notes down, as this session promises to be so insightful. So Hadi Oluke, my next question for you is, what catches your attention when you see an applicant's CV?
Okay, so like I said, the grades matter, really, the grades does matter. And another thing would be your grade and your CGPA. So not just stating your grade. So you might have a 2-1, yeah, 2-1. Many people have 2-1, but quantify it. And what do I mean by that? in the legal space, there's something called peer ranking. And what that means is that you're simply ranked against your contemporaries in a sense. So yes, you do have 2-1, but then you could also have been top among the top 5 best graduating students in your class. So quantify it to say, okay, yes, I have a 2-1, but I graduated with a 4.3. I graduated as the 4th best graduating student in my class. Or better still, you could then write, maybe I graduated as top 3% out of a class of 250 students. So in that sense, you have literally distinguished yourself amongst your peers. So that's what I mean by quantify your grade, quantify your CGPA. That would ordinarily catch my attention. Another thing would be, maybe if you've interned with the firm before, I think that will catch my attention, or any top tier law firm in general, that would definitely catch a recruiter's attention. And another could be that you've been able to concisely express what law means to you in your cover letter. I've read very compelling stories as to why a candidate thinks law is a calling to them. So those type of things actually does catch a recruiter's attention. Another thing could be maybe the general structure of the CV. I think that's another key thing. The general structure of the CV also counts a lot.
Thank you so much, Ade Foluke. I will implore members of the audience to please drop their questions in the chat box. So my next question would be that you're an HR specialist, you get to get CVs and cover letter every now and then. So what are those things you could see in an applicant's CV that will make you reject them?
So I'll speak generally to an application. So when you're applying, obviously you probably attach a CV and a cover letter. Getting a bland CV, and that's like you in a CV, you just have maybe the bio, you have your personal skills, you probably have your your educational qualification, just write LLB 2020, and there's nothing extra. That in itself is a turn off, really. So you have to be able to speak to more of who you are as a person and the experience you've garnered over time, which is perfectly understandable that it's entry level. You're probably in school, maybe applying for internship, or you are just finishing law school, but include something extra in that CV. Another thing that would ordinarily repel a recruiter would be getting an empty body of mail. Application. So something should ordinarily catch the person's attention. So you can't just send an attachment. Some don't even include any pleasantries, nothing, no dear, no good morning. They just attach a CV and then send. It's not good enough, really. It's not good enough. Or you just write the recruiter or something, please find attached. Attached for what? To what end? So you should be able to typically advise people that just paste your cover letter in the body of the mail. So if you don't want to go through the hustle of writing another speech, all of that, just paste your cover letter in the body of the mail. People call it cover letter, application letter, whatever you call it, just let it be in the body of the mail. So that immediately catches the person's attention. Another thing could be that probably an applicant had stated in the cover letter, in the application letter, that you intern at some firm, you extend somewhere, all of that. But then only for me to open the CV and all of those information are actually missing. The name of the firm is missing. The duration of the internship is missing. the experience, the actual experience is missing. The department you worked with is missing. So those things ordinarily would turn a recruiter off, because what you've done in your application letter is to spur my interest. But then I'm opening the CV and you're just dampening my spirits because there's really nothing to work with there. Another thing would be, I talked about structure. Another thing would be the fonts. Some fonts that are used are just not appealing to the eyes. I know people want to use something very fancy, very nice and all, but just stick to the regular fonts. Just stick to regular fonts. Those ones work. They work the best. And you also make it easy for the recruiter who is reviewing your CV, basically. Yeah, just few points.
Thank you so much, Adepoluke. That was so insightful. Now I'll be asking how best can law students prepare for a career in a top law firm while still in university?
So, thing is, there's a reason why law firms, and it cuts across all tiers. There's a reason why most of them have internship programs, annual internship programs. And it's because they also want to offer students the opportunity to have like a first-hand experience of what it's like to work in the real life, really. Because obviously school is different from the real life. And so those opportunities are there for people to actually intern. So applying for those internships, get very quality places. Like EMEC said, if it's entertainment law you want to specialize in, apply to a firm that actually specializes in that. State it in your email, state your preference, that if it's possible for you to get IP entertainment, so state it there. So one is internship. Another one would be maybe joining clubs, those associations you have in school, maybe editorial board. You have, I think I've heard of tax club, all sorts. Different universities have their own club. So join those groups. I know they also usually have study tour. We recently had one in my office from Lagos State University. Be part of those study tour, go for the excursion, go to the firm, meet with senior colleagues, get a mentor, because those are avenues for you to actually meet with these people one-on-one. So get a mentor, get someone to mentor you, take you through the ropes on how it really works. Because the truth is, for law firms themselves, all of these channels, be it externship, be it internship, be it study tour, and the likes, they're actually avenues for them to spot talent. So for a law firm, they are basically, when those things happen, they are basically on a talent scouting exercise. But to the student, we went for the tour, we saw their beautiful office, but it's really beyond that. And that's why people have to learn to take advantages of those things. Join those clubs, go for the study tour, apply for internship, do those things. Expose yourself to what it's like to be in the real world in that sense. So I think those key things can actually prepare students for real life.
Thank you so much, Adepoluke. We're really gaining a lot from you. I will implore members of the audience to please drop their questions in the chat box. And the person helping out with YouTube streaming to please help post questions from that platform here. So Adepoluke, my next question would be, how does the ATS resume checker work? We've heard a lot about this platform, this tool, and knowing that the top law firm like Onaluwa Jai receives lots of applications year in, out. So we want to know how this ATS resume checker works and how applicant can position their resume to meet what it takes.
Okay, so basically the ATS checker is really to sift through, like you said, we get tons of CVs. To sift through CVs, streamline the process, make it faster and all. So the keywords could typically mean just streamlining using location. So I could just want to get students from Lagos. So I just put Lagos. It could be just using streamlining based on grade. So I might just want first class students, I might just want second class upper students. I use that to streamline. It could be your degree. So it could be that for this particular recruitment, we want to hire those with LLM. So using that, I then do my streamline, or using internship experience generally. I key in my word as internship, and then it shortlists those people for me. But typically in our industry, I don't know what's obtainable elsewhere. We generally do not really use keywords. For Olaniwajai, every application we actually receive is assessed by a human, every single application. So there's a fair chance to everyone. In case maybe just some errors or some things we're missing, a human is still able to sort of give excuses to say, okay, but this also then stands out. So this thing can make the person shortlisted. But generally, just general ATS rule to make your CV friendly would be, don't use columns on your CV. Those are, you typically won't get your CV shortlisted by using columns. So columns, I mean, on your CV page now, on your portrait page, you have one part for maybe skills, then maybe you color it, sectionalize it, and then another part, the middle part, is like the main juice of the CV where you have all of your experience, and then the third part is maybe you put your skills or something. Don't do that. Instead, arrange it from top to bottom hierarchically. So don't use columns. Another thing about ATS is don't put pictures. Don't use pictures. They automatically just rule you out. Don't use pictures, don't use tables. Just have a very clean and simple CV. Nothing fancy. Don't use fancy bullet points. Use the simple one, those dots. Just use the dots. Yeah, generally, those are just general rules around ATS research.
Thank you so much, Ade Poluke. That was very insightful. So now my questions will get more to the interview process. So what does a typical hiring decision process look like? Could you walk us through that?
So typically you have the assessment stage, maybe 1 or 2, covering psychometric, covering personality tests, covering LSAT type questions, covering maybe essay type questions as well. So you have the assessment stage 1 or 2, and then you move on to the interview stages, which could also be 1 or 2. But for us, we currently have 2 levels. So you have the senior associate level, and then you have partner level. So senior associate will typically test your level of competence based on what you've written in your CV. And then partner level would be testing for cultural fit, organization fit. But like I said, peer ranking is very important, especially in the legal space. Peer ranking is important. So all of those assessment, all of those evaluation is then ranked against your peers. So it's really not you just being the best by yourself, but then in comparison with others, where do you actually fall? So that's typically our hiring process, and then a decision is made based on that.
Thank you so much. I would love to ask, how can an applicant prepare for the assessment stage?
Okay, so for the assessment, it typically covers testing cognitive ability, your logical reasoning. Yes, basically that. So it still goes back to you just taking, there are tons of those tests online. There are free tests online. So just practice, basically, just practice and practice. The more you do it, the more you get conversant with how the questions are asked and how you can apply yourself to the question. So just practice. There are tons of those questions online.
All right, thank you so much. Now to the interview stage. What kind of questions do you expect an applicant to ask during the interview stage?
So type of questions to ask. There's no wrong question per se. as long as it's important to you, then you obviously can ask. But it's important to ask for feedback. And that's because you're just starting out. Probably your first interview, your first 3 interviews probably not go well or be great. So it's best you ask for feedback about your performance during that interview. You might not ace that interview. You might not get the role, but then you know how to better prepare for the next one. Another thing, you could ask around culture, you could ask about how their work-life balance policies like, yeah, I think those would do. And if you're privy to know your interviewers beforehand, also do your research, and you could tailor your questions around a particular person to say, okay, I see Mr. Adiola, for example's sake, you've been with the firm for 8 years, you interned here, you did your NYSC, and now you're senior associate. So how would you advise, how have you been able to succeed? How do you think, what does it take to strive in an environment such as yours? So you could it also shows that you've done your own due diligence, you've done your research. So you're able to tailor your questions around that as well.
Thank you so much. That was so insightful. I will implore once again the members of the audience to please drop your questions in chat box. This is an opportunity to ask an HR specialist in the top law firm questions. Ms. Sadipoluke, I want you to answer the question on how best can an applicant prepare for an interview with a law firm. So from the entry level, what would you advise such individual to do?
So general tips would be dress the parts first. Dress the parts, look the parts, at least for the role you've applied for. But that aside would be confident in what you know. Some questions might kind of throw you off balance, but still stay confident. Even if you're speaking jargons, actually say it with confidence, with utmost confidence. So prepare, do your research about the firm. Know your black letter law well. So know it well enough, the principles of law, know it well, because it's entry level, really. So know it well enough, be able to speak to your internship experience. No matter how little you think what you did was, is still understand it to a large extent, and be able to speak to it if questions are asked. Because the expectation is you are able to speak to every line item on your CV. That's the expectation. So be able to speak to it, understand few transactions maybe you are letting on, understand it at least to a good extent. Be confident. Stay abreast, yes, stay abreast of issues globally or nationally. Those questions does come up, and is really, there's no right or wrong answer for this type of questions. They're basically assessing your critical thinking skills. Yeah, I think that will be it.
Thank you so much, Adepoluke. I would like to take you back to the aspect of the cover letter. I know this is a very important stage where you need to express yourself. So I would love to know, is there an expected structure to it? How do you expect an applicant to structure his or her story in the cover letter?
Okay, so for cover letter, I don't say there's a structure per se, but obviously you start with introducing yourself. I'm Adefoluke, graduate of so 2-1, best graduating, top, best, all of that. That introduction, like I said, quantify it. And then after that, you can move on to maybe courses and certifications that you've taken in your areas of interest, if you have any. So that could be your next paragraph. And then the next paragraph could then be maybe skills that you possess, and you could align it, if possible, you could align it to the firm's values and how you've been able to demonstrate it. Leadership and volunteer experience as well does count. So you must have mentioned that in your CV. So in the cover letter, you're speaking to it a bit more in detail, that, okay, you volunteered here, you led here, represented your school in a competition, things like that. And you can just close with a memorable closing line, speaking to why should you be considered? What do you think you'll be offering the firm in the first place? So nothing spectacular, is still entry level, but to be able to speak to your own value proposition, basically.
Thank you so much. That was so insightful. Adefulu, gave way to give words of encouragement to undergraduates. What will you tell them? Speaking from your experience as an HR specialist at the top Nigerian law firm.
So take advantage of opportunities that comes your way. Just take advantage of opportunities, be it internship, externship, be it excursion. To you, just excursion was is beyond that. So take advantage of those opportunities, presentations, your moot court, competitions. So be as rounded as possible, because the truth is, and in a bid to prepare for after school life, don't forget your grades. Don't neglect your grades, because as I said, those grades are important. They would give you a foot at the door. Really, those grades will give you a foot at the door. Just be well-rounded, because now everybody's working for the grades, right? Because we definitely get lots of first class, lots of 2-1, but also explore other areas. So that sort of distinguishes you from the pack. So just try to be as rounded as possible. That would be my advice.
Thank you, Ade, for the care. That was superb. I have a question, and this out of curiosity. So when applicants send in their applications, do HR specialists or personnel go the extra mile of checking social media activities? Like, how does this person play on LinkedIn, Twitter, or the likes? Does that have any impact on one's application?
Not necessarily, but for more experienced role, yes, but not for entry level.
All right, thank you. That was insightful. So I'll be going to the chat box to take questions from members of the audience. So the first question we have here is from Iyanoluwa Fesobi. Iyanu wants to know that when you are asked about salary expectation in an interview setting, should you state a number or ask them what they are willing to pay? This is an interesting one.
I don't think a law firm will be willing to say their own pay structure. I doubt it. I doubt it. But it's best, what I usually advise, especially when I'm on this panel, is if you can't give the actual amount, give a range. I think that's safer, because you're also trying to maintain your own, maybe firm's confidentiality and all. But so you could give a range. And the reason why those questions are actually asked is so we don't necessarily just take forever on a process, and then at the end of the day, it doesn't work out and they will keep dragging. And it's also not to shortchange you. Personally, in my firm, we don't use it as a benchmark, because we already have a compensation structure. So that's really not a thing for us. But we just want to understand that if we do make an offer to this person, are we going to be underpaying or not, basically? So just give a range to be safe. And if you insist on not sharing, that you're trying to maintain confidentiality, I think the panel too will understand.
Thank you so much, Adefoluke. Next question is from Kojovi Daniel. Kojovi wants to know that what level is it advisable to start applying for internships in the top tier law firm?
From your first year. From your first year.
Yeah, that was very direct. Thank you so much. So next question is from Ayola Olawi. Ayola is asking that when you don't know the answer to a particular question at the moment, what's the best thing to do?
So thing is, you could try making an attempt to answering it. But if you are still stuck, just admit your limited knowledge. Just admit it and just admit it and move on.
All right, thank you so much. Next question is from Emanuela Otu. What should be the important highlights in a CV?
In a CV, so there's usually an hierarchy to CV structure, especially for, like I've said, because it's entry level. So there's an hierarchy to it. Obviously, it has to be well labeled and sectionalized. So you typically can start with career objective, you then move on to your educational qualification, and that's because you're just starting out. So what matters to me at this point as a recruiter is what did you finish with, or what are you currently on? So educational qualification, you can then move on to maybe if you belong to a professional association, maybe the Nigerian Institute of Chartered Arbitrator, things like that. And you then go on to your work experience. So now your work experience is actually internship. So you state those ones where you interned, the department you were assigned to, what you did, what you learned, and you can then go down to maybe awards. If you have awards, achievements, if from uni or from law school, a faculty awardee, you can state that. You have maybe letters of recommendation, you can state that as well. And yeah, then if you have publications, I think Kelo mentioned it earlier that if write articles and all. So if you've written articles, you can state that under publications. You include the link, so it's not like you're telling a lie. You include the links. And for language, if you speak a foreign language, you can actually include it. You can actually include it and just state your level of proficiency. So in that order, in that hierarchy, I think that works. And just from top to bottom, like I said, no colons. Don't use the colons.
Thank you so much, Hade, for looking at. There's also another question from Emanuela. She wants to know how long should the cover letter be?
How long? Maximum a page. Minimum of 4 paragraphs. I think that would do. A maximum of 6. Yeah.
But still a page.
But still a page.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
The next question is from Wisdom. Wisdom is asking that for undergraduate internships, do those who have no previous internship experience have a chance of being chosen?
Definitely, yes. So usually different firms have their own criteria. So yes, you should have a fair chance of being chosen because everybody started somewhere anyways. So there should be a fair chance.
Thank you so much. Next question is from Inanna Kalu. She wants to know that how do I get feedback if I don't make the cut for an internship slot? Sometimes in the decline mail you are sent, your flaws are not explicitly mentioned.
Just imagine how many people apply for internships and then how many feedbacks you actually have to give. But sometimes you can actually go the extra mile that when you receive those feedback, you can reply saying that, please, could you give like specific reasons why I wasn't chosen? But if still no response, you just look at your error, look at it again, and then try identify the errors yourself. But you can always take that bold step to send another email requesting for details.
Thank you so much. Next question is from Charlene Hazy Roots. She said she mentioned that you said we should start applying for internships from our first year. But she's saying, however, if you have not had any experience, what information should be included other than your race and skills? So for those without experience.
No, I didn't get that. Under what?
So other than your grades and skills, what other information should you include for those without no experience?
Okay, so without experience, you can buttress on your areas of interest and the courses you've taken in school. And there are a bunch of courses, contract law also. So you can buttress on that, maybe buttress on the grades you got in those courses. If you still don't have any experience, let's say at the minimum, you have your result from your first semester 100 level. So state the courses you took and then what you got from it. That should give you a fair chance too.
Thank you so much, Ade, for the care. So next question is from Deborah Ali. She said, I was told as an undergraduate, you should have just a one-page CV. But with all you have said, would it be okay for your CV to exceed a page?
As an undergraduate, yes, stick to one page. Everything I've said shouldn't take. It should fit perfectly in one page. What you could do is to expand the margins. So you have your Microsoft Word, there's a margin. So you could move those margins to the extreme, not to the extreme end, but then just move it a bit further. It will fit in.
Thank you so much, Ade, for the care. Deborah also wants to know that is there a particular time frame law firms generally accept internship applications?
Different firms with their own policy, really. For us, we do summer. So we're currently we're starting our internship next week, Monday. So different firms with their own policy.
So for Olaniwaja, is the application still on?
No, it's actually closed. We've made our selections.
All right, thank you so much. I'll implore the audience the last time before session goes to an end to send in any question before we are done with this. Thank you so much, Ade, for the care. It has been so insightful from you, and I'm sure every member of the audience learned new insight that we can apply when next we make applications. Seeing that there are no questions any longer from the audience, I would hand over to Ewalua to proceed with the rest of the career seminar. Thank you so much, Ade,
Thank you very much
for sharing so much insight with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Adefoluke. Thank you very much, Ayotunde. I surely learned a lot. That was a very insightful session. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. So at the moment, we'll be going on a 10-minute break before we move on to our final session on international trade and investment. And I'm sure everyone would agree that this career seminar has actually been very value-packed so far. So I look forward to seeing you all in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Just to be certain.
Yes.
All right. So now we'll be going straight to our final session for today's career seminar. And that's the session on international trade and investment law. To moderate the seminar, I'll be calling on Iyanolu Afesobi. Iyan, please take it from here.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. As Ewalua said, I'm Iyanolu Afesobi, a law student and an intern with Lex Lata Center for International Law and Comparative Constitutionalism. I will be moderating this session on international trade and investment law. This is the last session for today, so thank you for staying with us. Today, we have two panelists who have done amazing things in their fields. So the first person we have is Ms. Olaronke Famuyiwa, whose citation I will read now. Olaronke Famuyiwa is a lawyer specializing in international trade. She presently works as a trade negotiator at the Nigerian Office for Trade Negotiations, where she is the head of the TRIPS department. Olaronke has been an active participant in Nigeria's efforts to establish a trade remedies mechanism. In the course of her career in international trade, she has had 2 stints at the World Trade Organization, where she previously worked as an intern and more recently served as a young professional. She holds a Master's of Law in International Trade and Investment Law from the University of Pretoria, South Africa, as well as a Bachelor of Laws from the University of Ilorin in Nigeria. Having been licensed to practice law in Nigeria, she is a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. She has also taken many training courses and routinely offers her knowledge and experiences to a diverse group of young individuals looking to break into the world of international trade. Thank you very much for joining us today, Ms. Olaronke. Our second panelist is Mr. Olugbemiga Ojo. Olugbemiga Ojo is a trained attorney and an international business law expert with over a decade of international business law experience in the corporate sector, which spans through international trade, legal practice, and banking and supply chain management. He holds a certificate from the Harvard Law School in leadership and legal business management. Then he studied and sat for the California bar examination after his full migration to the United States as a permanent resident. In recognition of his professional accomplishments and excellent academic pedigree, he bagged a scholarship to study a master's in international business law at the Washington College of Law in year 2020. In 2019, he became a director in a California entity, Lackenberg LLC, an international trade and business consultancy firm for both individual and corporate clients globally. He has held this managing director position till date, and by virtue of this role, he has been invited to speak and contribute to topical issues at different international business events globally. As an orator and public speaker, he has also delivered several papers on international trade, international business, and international law for different countries and organizations. He is a member of the International Bar Association, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the Diaspora Organization in Washington /CEO of an international trade advisory United States, with a presence in the UK, to engineer, cross-border attorney, noted creative coach, and a gifted communicator. In our invitation to be here today, we are happy. So before I proceed with the session, this is a reminder to the audience to keep their mics muted. We will answer them after the panel session. Okay. Without further ado, let's get into the questions. So my first question is, to begin with, what does an international trade and investment lawyer do? This question is for Mr. Gbenga.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here today to speak to you guys. An international trade lawyer wears so many hats in different categories. I'll go straight to what international trade means. It means trade between two nations or two residents of two different nations. So taking a cue from that, what an international trade lawyer does is that he or she represents either of the parties and provides legal overview of how transactions or international contracts or international trade contracts should be handled. And taking it from the business point of view, an international trade lawyer would advise his clients, who, like I said, is going to be someone or a business that wants to do business or trade with an international or a foreign entity, on how to protect his or her interests, or the organization can protect its interest in doing international trade contracts. So just giving a general definition. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Thank you for that brief explanation, Mr. Olugbemiga. Ms. Olaronke, do you mind adding anything to that?
Hello, everyone. Am I audible? Hi.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I did, because
we can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you very much. It's good to be here. From my own point of view, I would say it likely depends on what aspect of trade you are focusing on, because I think international trade law specifically is like, it covers mostly trade relationship between governments to governments, you know. So really it deals with the multilateral agreements, regional trade agreements, bilateral trade agreements, and all of that. So I think what does an international trade lawyer do? It likely depends on what field of international trade you specialize in. You can either be a trade negotiator, negotiating trade agreements on behalf of your government, or you could be working with international trade organization secretariats. So you're probably trade analyst, trade legal advisor, economic affairs advisor, trade, like working with, for instance, the World Trade Organization, the African Free Trade Secretariat, ECOWAS Secretariat, or you could be working with trade law firms that literally advise people, consumers, producers, exporters on trade agreements and how to implement the agreement. It could also be trade and finance. So really, it just depends on what field of international trade law you decide to focus on. So personally, for me, I am a trade negotiator. So I negotiate international trade agreements on behalf of Nigeria. And like I said, international trade law basically covers trade agreements between countries, really. So it's like international, to break it down, to make it simple. So I would say international trade law is regulated at the multilateral level by the WTO, the World Trade Organization, at the regional level by the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, for us that are, for Africans. I don't know if there are non-Africans in this group. And for West Africa, it's regulated by ECOWAS. For maybe Southern Africa, East Africa, that would be SADC, COMESA, EAC. So really, it's a very, very broad field, and what you do depends on where you want to fix yourself in this large scheme of things. So.
All right, thank you very much for that. So in essence, the field of international trade and investment law is a very broad career field. All right, so this is a personal question for Ms. Olarunke and Mr. Olugbemiga. What led you to specialize in international trade and investment law? Was it something you've always wanted to do, or did some happenings lead you down that career path? So Miss, you can go first.
Okay, for me, I would say that I actually stumbled on international trade field because I was initially into business and human rights. So I wanted to do a master's in business and human rights, something related to that. But when I applied for the master's, apparently I was applying for trade. So I think I got it mixed up somehow. I can't remember clearly, but it was a case of I got it mixed up or something. And then I'd applied for this particular master's degree, which is International Trade and Investment Law in Africa at the University of Pretoria. And I'd applied for something else, but the point is I stumbled on it. And then when I got the admission for this particular master's, I got a scholarship with it. So it was a case of, well, I didn't really want to do this one, but there's a scholarship. So why not? So it was just like, yeah, let me just do it. And I find it very interesting right now. So.
Wow, so it was more like a coincidence that just happened, and you just happened to find that you enjoyed the field.
Yeah, very mistake, but interesting one. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Olugbemiga, can you share your own experience?
Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a broad description of what international trade and how I got into it. Let me break it down this way. International trade covers export and import. When I say export and import, it means that are buying and selling. Let me break it down. So to people that don't have like a detailed knowledge of what it's all about. So my passion to impact macroeconomics actually drove me into international trade. Even though I had done a stint of my career was in maritime law at AP Moller Maersk. I don't know if you guys have heard of Maersk. It's a shipping company headquartered in Copenhagen, Denmark. They have an office in Nigeria. So I worked at their office in 2009 as a claims and legal officer. And so you take care of contracts, and it's actually contract between individuals exporting and importing. Fine, governments to do business and everything, but it's majorly people, farmers, manufacturers, maybe people that offer services that want to export their services. For example, if you're a technology expert, you're a cybersecurity expert, do you understand my point? So international trade, when you break it down, involves either selling across the ocean or buying or importing. And when people do this, there's exchange of currencies. There's exchange of, most of the time, it is the US dollar that is the denominated currency of international trade exchange globally. Things are changing now, but 99% of the time still are denominated in the US dollar. So when this happens, I'm going to take you guys a little bit into economics. When there is buying and selling, the economy is developed. Macroeconomics is developed. Jobs are created. Crime is reduced in the society because when people import and export, so imagine that I am a cocoa farmer in maybe Ile-Ife in Osun State. And my cocoa farm is worth like $1 million. And when I sell it, that is international trade. When I export my cocoa beans to maybe America, to the UK, to China, that is international trade because they are going to pay me in the US dollars. So the law that governs that contract is the international trade law. So now imagine that I export my cocoa beans to the UK or to China or anywhere, and they pay me $1 million. What am I going to do with the $1 million? I'm going to want to expand my production bands, maybe my farm or something like that. I'm using the cocoa farmer because that's a typical example. I can use other examples, live examples. So the contract between that cocoa farmer and the buyer offshore is called an international trade contract. And once that is signed, the law that governs the contract, that's the commercial relations between these two people, is the international trade law that both parties have agreed to activate in the circumstance. Now, going to why I delved into it, I've always had a passion to create jobs, to reduce unemployment, and to impact macroeconomics, to reduce poverty in the system, reduce crime. And that was what took me into international trade after having a stint of a little bit of it back in 2009 at Maersk. I think that was about 13 years ago. And today, I see that that is what the whole world sits on, the World Trade Organization, nations. That is what all nations depend on. If you're not selling something, you are buying something. And once you do that trade and exchange, there's the money in the system, and then you have less inflation, and then jobs are created. And once jobs are created, people are happy. People have money in their pockets to be able to spend. And not going technically and deeply into the description. So that's basically what brought me into international, being able to help people that actually do this kind of contracts, being able to offer services to them, being able to, on the long run, enable them to impact macroeconomics and grow the economy. Thank you. Hello?
Hello, can you hear you?
Oh, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Did you hear everything I said, or I should go over it again? I wasn't sure if it, the network wasn't handling.
I think we heard you clearly. I heard you clearly.
Thank you.
I also heard you clearly.
Yeah, seems like Iyanoluwa
Sorry for
dropped
that
off.
breaking transmission. Explanation. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Sorry for that. As the field of international trade and investment, it plays a very significant role in being able to succeed in the career field.
Could you please repeat the question? We didn't get it.
Mr. Albin, you can answer the question.
Please, the question again. Can you go over the question again?
Did you get the question?
Not yet. I didn't.
Very, very crucial to having a successful career in international trade and investment.
Okay, if I got your question, you said what are crucial fundamentals towards having a successful career in international trade and investment. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, to have a successful career in international trade as a lawyer. So in international trade and investment, there are different players, there are different professionals. So if you're talking as a lawyer doing international trade and investment, my co-panelist Olaronke Famuyiwa said, it's a very broad field. So let me specifically talk about the field where I play, which is in the international trade contracts between parties, that's exporters and importers. Trade is actually buying and selling, export and import. So for you to be a successful attorney in international trade law, you need to first of all have a passion for it. My own passion was ignited. Let me give you guys a brief insight into how my passion was ignited. So I was approaching the library in California because at the time I was studying for the bar. And I saw that a lot of people, it gives the impression I used to have back in Nigeria, even though I had a stint of law back in Nigeria. But, I was trying to walk into the library early in the morning to study, and I saw a lot of people, different categories, including white people, homeless people that were jogging the door of the library. They wanted to clean up and everything. And, I started wondering, so they're broke and stranded people in America as well. I thought it was just in Africa, like the impression that they used to create on CNN, like, hey, everybody's dying in Africa, everybody's hungry, everybody's struggling. It's global, it's a global problem. So I now developed a passion to find out what the solution would be for less people to be homeless, for more people to be able to get jobs, for the economy to improve, and for people's lives to be better. And the solution I found after conducting my research was and still is trade, export and import. So any country that does a lot of exports, that has its citizens, not the nation itself, the nation does business as well, but as majority of its citizens that do a lot of exports would have a lot of money. Just imagine yourself that, okay, you sell a lot of stuff. Like, let's say 10 people in your class at the university, they sell a lot of stuff. That means they are going to have cash flow. It's just simple way of describing life. They're going to have cash flow, they're going to have cash in their hands. And that's what happens to any country where you have a lot of people that manufacture, that have intellectual property, that have things to sell. China is a good example. In 1999, when I was leaving high school, China's economy was on the same threshold with that of Nigeria. Today, Chinese economy is struggling with that of America. Why? Because China sells a lot of things. You guys can bear me witness that there's hardly anyone amongst you that has not bought at least an item that was manufactured in China. And the implication of that is that money to China. Any item that is manufactured in China that is in your custody, that is anywhere in Nigeria, it means that the value for that item, the monetary value in US dollar, is sitting in China. It's developing the Chinese economy. It's creating jobs in China. It's impacting the reserve. There's something they call reserve. That's the money that is kept in the bank account of a nation. So any item you see that is manufactured, maybe it's a farm item that is exported from a country, is helping the economy of that country. That's trade classified, simply put. And what now drove my passion is that I realized that in my own little way, I can support trade in Africa, especially Nigeria. It is going to reduce unemployment. It is going to impact macroeconomics. It is going to increase how much we have in our, I'm not going to go practical economics with you guys. I'm just going to use it so that you get a picture I'm trying to paint. It's going to impact how much we have in our reserves. Because as I speak to you, the reserve in Nigeria is almost empty. And so after conducting that, I did that research for about 18 months to realize that, okay, you know what, the only solution, America needs help. America is a very wealthy nation. They have a lot of money, they have everything, but the truth is they are still trying to increase. Nobody wants to go lesser than what you had in your bank account yesterday. And so that was what drove my passion into international trade. And after conducting the research, I now came back to Nigeria and we set up an entity as an extension of our law firm. That's Lakenberg LLC. And we now started reaching out to exporters, people in that field that would want to develop. A lot of people want to do export in Nigeria. And once they do export, they get paid in the US dollars. The exchange rate of Naira to dollar today is not encouraging. So when you export and you get dollar, that means you are impacting, that's another field I'm going into now. You are impacting the value of the Naira. Because when you do a lot of exports, that means the dollar is demanding for the Naira. Then you can now call the shot and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to sell it at X amount to $1. So when you have a lot of US dollars, then the exchange rate in Nigeria is going to go down. It's over 600 now, as I'm informed. It can get to $100 Naira to $1. If a lot of export is done by the people of Nigeria, if a lot of manufacturing is done for the purpose of exports, not only for the use in Nigeria, but for the purpose of selling abroad. So that is trade, simply put. And that is why I am so passionate. Every opportunity I have to talk about trade, to talk about what impact it's going to have, and I'm now going to go into the direct impact it's going to have on you and I in Lagos, Nigeria. My last trip in Nigeria was in 2021. I was driving on Ikorodu Road and robbery started at about 8:30 p.m. And I had lost it because I had all my travel documents in the car, my passport, and if they had stolen it that night, I'll be stranded in Nigeria. So, but a miracle happened, I wasn't robbed. But this is where I'm going. Now imagine that the guys that were robbing in traffic that day had the opportunity to work on someone's cocoa farm or had the opportunity to work in someone's manufacturing company. They will be busy or tired from working that day. They will not be on the street robbing. This is where I'm going. If trade had expanded beyond where it is presently in Nigeria, more jobs will have been created. Majority of people that are idle and jobless committing crime will not be doing it. Because if someone goes to work from 8 to 5 p.m., he's not likely to be in traffic robbing at 8:30. He's going to want to go and rest. And that is what trade does. You understand? And beyond that, if someone has a job, he can take care of his family, can pay his rent. From the rent that he pays, the landlord is able to pay the kids' school fees. From the kids' school fees that is paid by the landlord, the school is able to pay the teacher's salary. So that is what happens. That is macroeconomics. I'm describing macroeconomics. I'm breaking it down to you guys. I don't want to draw on the complexities. So my research brought me the knowledge of the fact that if you're a trading nation, especially an exporting nation, I'm not talking of Nigeria as a nation, I'm talking of Nigerians, businesses, whether small business, whether large business, if you're exporting a lot like China is doing, you are ready to save your nation from insecurity, from unemployment, from various negative effects of not having money in the system. So that is basically what inspired my own passion. It is real. I practicalized it, and we've seen it work in different countries. And so that is what trade basically does, and that's why I'm in trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stan. So I'll be taking it here from Iyanolu. We apologize for the network glitches. So thank you very much, Stan, for your exposition. And I'm sure now many law students are even more inspired to want to get into international trade. And this actually leads me to my next question, because I'm sure many students now are wondering how well they can break into this space. And then Ms. Olarunke, we are aware that you have interned at the World Trade Organization, and you also work as a young professional last year. So we want to know how you got these opportunities and what's the process like? How will you advise students who are trying to break into this space?
Okay, thank you, Ewalua. I'm just going to share my own personal experience. And so for me, it was a case of the master's degree from I did. It's compulsory that you also have like a 6-month internship. So it's like divided into two. You have 6 months of coursework, and then you have 6 months of internship and dissertation, writing of your mini dissertation. So mainly what usually happens is the school would try to fix you into any of the international trade organizations all over the world that they can fix you into. However, if you can fix yourself into one, that also works. So I personally tried to get myself into the World Trade Organization. And the first process to getting an internship into the World Trade Organization is actually to have a master's degree. It's like one of the most, it's the very first criteria to getting into the organization. So when you have a master's degree, there's like an internship roster. You register on their website, on the internship roster. And then what should happen then will be that when you're on the roster and they need you, they then contact you and then interview you. Like maybe there's so many divisions on the WTO. Whoever needs you then contacts you, and then if you pass the interview and the exams, then you get in. But on the side, I would say one of the things that really helped to push me into the system will be that to reach out to people. Because I had, during my master's, we had so many lecturers from so many international organizations. So it was a case of they come to lectures for like a week, and then you get to meet them, you interact with them. So I would say my points right here will be the importance of mentorship and reaching out to people who are like ahead of you in the profession. So I reached out to almost all my lecturers then, because I just believed that one way or the other they would be able to help. And then I applied with WTO, WIPO, UN, and so many other trade organizations, but eventually I was able to get the World Trade Organization through the help of some of the lecturers and people I had met along the way. So it's good to have good grades, to have your master's degree, to register on the roster, but also it is very important to have mentors, to reach out to people. Like search online, search on LinkedIn, you see a lot of people with World Trade Organization on their profile. They're probably looking for interns or looking for an extra hand or something. So reach out to people. It's either yes or no. So that's just it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aramke. Mr. Ulubeliga, do you have anything to add? How can law students and young lawyers actually break into the international trade and investment law space?
So basically, you need to first of all study to qualify as a lawyer. That's the basic requirement. And in most countries of the world today, lawyers specialize. They choose their specialty. And, you know, you can decide to learn a specialty in international trade, maybe through the WTO, through different agencies, or through law firms that are into international trade. Not a lot of law firms, not even a lot of lawyers are experts, even way older lawyers like 50 years at about, not a lot of lawyers are experts in international trade. Some just do general law practice. So you need to be intentional and be specific about, you know, maybe the law firms you apply to, check their areas of practice, maybe organizations as well that are into international trade, or organizations that do maritime services. So Google is your best friend. You can look anything up. You can Google anyone. You can Google anything, and you know, but just make sure that what you're choosing matches where you're going. Don't plan to be an international trade lawyer and go and maybe intern at a criminal law firm. You're not going to learn nothing about international trade there. And I knew what I wanted from the even though leaving law school, evidence and criminal law were my best courses. And that's what I was really good at. I thought you could commit any crime and get away with it. But within the first 16 months of my law practice, I knew I wanted to be in business and international business law field. And I switched. So know what you want and go after it. That's and you get it. The world is yours. Whatever you had the world to give you, the world is going to give you. Yeah. And I'm going to leave you guys with something. I mentored under a lawyer that has a lot of confidence. You know what he tells me? He will tell me, I was a young lawyer. I was a junior lawyer back in 2007. He said, you are the lawyer. Demand for whatever you want. The world will listen to you. And it works. Even when I was in Nigeria, you know, I've had clients fly me to Europe. I speak confidently as a lawyer, and you know, people take their notes. Even in America, I knock on doors. Once I introduce myself, then they want to listen to you. So you have to, first of all, have that confidence at the back of your mind that the world is yours the moment you get your bar, and whatever you want is going to come to you. So go into the world with that positive mindset. It's going to happen.
Thank you very much, sir. So now we'll be moving to some questions from the audience. And this question, I will direct it to Ms. Olarunke. Nana Kalu is asking a question for, the person says, I was trying to conduct a research into the African Free Trade Agreement, but the terminology seemed difficult to grasp. How do I simplify these complex terms, please?
Okay, the terminology in terms of the African Free Trade Agreement seems very difficult to grasp.
I guess terminologies in international trade generally, it looks somehow like a complex course.
Okay, yes, okay. Well, how do I start? To be honest with you, I think the person who asked this question must be a student, undergrad, maybe. And I would say take it slowly, because really you can't know all the terminologies in trade in one day. And I would be honest with you, even I think I have like 6 years of experience working in international trade. Maybe I know most of them, but there are some of them that you still find like quite difficult, or you mix together, because you learn every day, you keep learning. So don't stress yourself about getting to know all of them. But I will say that if you want to start from learning about trade, maybe start learning from the WTO, because like Mr. Benga has rightly explained, trade is import, export between people. But then international trade is like the economic transactions between countries. And these countries are making this law for the people. So like it comes down from countries to people, like he explained. So I would say start from the very top of trade. Maybe start from the WTO. You could go on the WTO website. When you go on the website, what I advise those that work with me in my office is there's nothing you're looking for about trade. There's no terminology, there's no explanation you're trying to get about international trade that you would not find on the WTO website. So that's like the best resources for undergrad, anyone that's trying to learn about trade. So go on that website, you'll see there's like a part of it that says trade topics. So under that, there's trade in goods, trade in services, intellectual property rights, e-commerce, like almost every aspect of trade. So you pick the one you're interested in learning, then you learn them. And if you really also want to like get to understand this terminology even deeper, there's this e-learning website also on the WTO website. They have like e-learning courses. So register on that courses. There are basic introduction to international trade courses. There are trade in goods courses, trade in services, whatever you are interested in, then you can learn, but I would say take it from the top. When you understand that, then you can go down to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Even though the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is like a replica of the World Trade Organization in terms of the Marrakesh Agreement and its annexes, is like a replica of most things, just with slight differences to make it some slight changes, just a little bit, because African scenarios. But if you take it from WTO and then you bring it down to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, then maybe you understand it better. Then you can bring it down to ECOWAS. Then you can bring it down to national trade policies and all of that. It's quite broad. It's really, really a lot. So don't stress yourself. You can't know it in a day, and you can't know it as an undergrad. Like I said in my previous comments, start maybe from having a master's degree, which gives you like a very broad, basic background. Then you could start building up on what you've learned during your master's degree as you work and gain experiences. But for now, if you do not have a master's degree and you're still an undergrad, just go on the WTO website. There's also this website called TRALAC, 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 like it's a South African site. You can also go there. They have a lot of resources and materials about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So you just have to read and keep reading to get better. So no stress, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Araruke. Mr. Olubemiga, someone is asking, Iola says, will you say that knowledge of finance and accounting is necessary to be an international trade law?
So I would first of all say no knowledge is lost, right? That's number one. To be an international trade or international investment lawyer, you need to at least have basic knowledge of 1 + 1 is 2. I'm not asking you to know the y, the x, integration, differentiation in mathematics. Do you understand what I mean? But basic adding of figures together, basic understanding of how figures work and how records are kept is very important. However, it is not mandated, do you understand? To be able to advise on the legal implication of stuff, on regulatory rules and everything, you don't need figures and everything. But there are instances that you're going to stumble on figures, and 1 or 2 instances you might stumble on figures, but they are still just going to be basic arithmetics. So that's why it's important to at least have, but you don't have to be an expert in finance, or to some extent, there's an aspect still that dwells on finance, actually, that dwells on economics, that dwells on investment expertise. So, international trade is very broad, but take baby steps. Learn the basics. Be a graduate of law. Choose your expertise. Oh, I want to be in international trade, international business. The first rule is you have your basic rule of law of contract. I believe most of you are beyond year 2 now. So at least you know how far, you know acceptance, you know consideration, you know intention to enter into legal relations. And, And I must confess to you, you have learned international trade accidentally while learning contracts, because there are some foreign, what's it called, cases that you were taught when you were being taught contracts, like the Couturier versus Hasty in particular. Did you guys learn Couturier versus Hasty? Contracts. Did you read Law Contract by Itse Sagi?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did.
Yes.
I did.
Attention to the cases I'm mentioning, Couturier versus Hasty. It was later when I got into international trade, I remember, oh wow, Couturier versus Hasty was about the delivery of maize for the
corn. Yeah, corn.
Corn, right? Yeah, maize, corn. I'm still good to be able to remember Couturier versus Hasty. Wow. Okay, so basically that's trade. That's trade. Now imagine what happened in Couturier versus Hasty. Someone was trying to raise the issue of a breach of contract. Someone was saying like, oh no, the maize fermented before it got delivered. There are international trade laws, Incoterms. Do you understand, that govern what determines who is in default, who has breached the contracts. So now imagine that you are the lawyer on one side, and then I'm the lawyer on the other side. So you need to be speaking to your knowledge of basic contracts and the international law that governs the relationship. So don't limit yourself to, oh, its offer is acceptance, oh, you breached. There might be a slight tweak in the situation of things when you look at the international law. When there used to be this rule that I crammed word for word back in uni days under commercial law. It's Section 18, Rule 1 of Sales of Goods Act 1890. You understand? It is where there is an unconditional contract for the sale of specific goods in a delivery state. The property in the goods passes to the buyer. Immediately the contract is completed, and it is immaterial whether the time of payment or time of delivery of both be postponed. There is a provision in Incoterms, international trade law, that speaks specifically to that. You understand? In international trade, they call some contracts CIF, FOB, free on board, CIF, and everything. That's quotation I gave you is talking of a an FOB contract. That the moment I put the goods on the board of a vessel, do you understand? My liability, my obligation has passed. Do you understand my point? So don't overlook what you're learning at, because you're laying a foundation to what you're going to be doing in the future. And you are accidentally already indirectly learning international trade. You are learning the basics. So don't get scared about the terminologies, because you just need to be able to, fit in the puzzles by the time you start seeing all these major jargons, Incoterms and everything. Just take your mind back to the basic law of contract that you learned back in your early university days. And it's going to be very easy for you to piece things together.
Thank you very much, sir. Time is actually very fast.
Oh, okay.
You just go on.
Okay, yeah, so I just wanted to quickly chip in into this, because this person said with the knowledge of finance and accounting be necessary. I know lawyers are always very scared of calculations and mathematics and all of that, but to be honest with you, in my own master's course, the very first topic we did was Introduction to Economics, and the next one was accounting. So these courses are part and parcel of international trade. So get prepared, it will be part of it. But the thing is, for people like me who do not like calculations at all, the moment they taught me all of that and I crammed all of that and poured it down like that was it. So I tried to focus on the simpler part of it, the agreement and the English and all of that. But you will need it. And because I'm talking from experience, because when I first worked with Nigerian of my current organization, I was posted to the Trade Remedies department. And Trade Remedies is simply, I don't know, trade remedies is quite broad. I will not go into the explanation of what trade remedies are, but they're just like policy tools for the protection of domestic industries in your countries. So now I was the head of anti-dumping unit, and anti-dumping is simply like calculation. like Excel sheets, calculation, blah, blah, blah. And I was heading this unit. So how do I explain to people that I went to Victoria for 1 year to learn all of this and I'm not able to make the calculation? So it's boring. Calculation is difficult for me, but these are things that you meet in the future because they're like part and parcel of trade. I mean, it's trade, and so let's face it.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Okay. I'm sure many people are in this no mathematics gang, but we just have to pull through.
Yes, we have to.
We're avoiding to scare you guys, but still take baby steps. Don't get scared of anything. The world is okay.
Yes, thank you very much. So our time is fast spent. So if you can take maybe 30 seconds of parting words from Mr. Aruke and Mr. Rupi. That's fine. So Mr. Aruke, you can go first.
Okay, parting words. If you are interested in trade, I would say that you should go for it because trade is about people, which I cannot even explain better than Mr. Gbenga has explained it. Trade is about people. So even when I work for the government, even when we go to the World Trade Organization or the AFCFTA to negotiate trade agreements that regulates the trade that people have in our countries, we still have it at the back of my mind that we are negotiating for the people back home. We are trying to find laws, agreement that will make the trade between people simpler, easier, better. So trade is really about people. It's like you're contributing to a larger cause. You're contributing to making the life of people better, alleviating poverty, improving standard of living. So it's really an interesting field. It's really a very broad field. Even if you're like in trade, in finance, you're providing money, like monetary funds and all of that to make sure that trade is moving smoothly. So it's an interesting field. I would say that if you're interested in doing this, I think you should really go for it. And the thing about Nigeria that I have noticed personally is not a lot of lawyers are involved in international trade. And I saw a question about if maritime is also part of international. Yes, maritime is just a subset of international trade, it's part of international trade. So if you're interested in that part, go for it. But then don't shy away from reaching out to people, because you wouldn't, if you search deeply, not so many lawyers in Nigeria are into international trade. So the little people that are into it, try to reach out to them, seek advice. How should I go about it? What next should I do? Where is better? Which one is better? So go for it, but seek assistance, seek help. Don't do it by yourself. It might be difficult, it might be rough, but reach out to people so you can have a smooth path. I'm not sure if I make sense, but yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. The moment you get your bar, the world is yours to conquer. Anything you can imagine you want to achieve as a lawyer, you want to be a trade law expert, you want to be a trailblazing expert in any field, even if it's not trade, it might be in other fields, investment law, it might be maritime, anything whatsoever. Just work assiduously and make sure you do excellent in your bar. Get your bar, and the moment you get it, you just have everything it takes to face the world. If it's in the world of trade, yeah, you're welcome. It's big enough to accommodate so many more lawyers, a billion more lawyers, because the world keeps evolving. Trade is as old as Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. So just have it at the back of your mind that trade would always be with us as long as we drink water and we wear clothing. Trade would always be with us. So whenever you want to delve in it, know that you have what it takes, everything that it takes for you to get in there. And know that, first of all, you need to hold your confidence in your right hand. Know that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. Just always have at the back of your mind the spirit of, yes, I can, and you will achieve it. And aside that, learn, find good mentors, find people who are good at what they do, who succeed at what they do. They would put you in the line of success. Identify what you want and go after it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. So we have official.
Hello, sorry, I'm so sorry to cut you short, but one last word. I read through the questions and someone said, how necessary is it to have knowledge of foreign languages? Please learn French, learn Spanish. Learn French, learn Spanish. Please, I'm begging you. These languages bring more opportunities to you. I would not lie to you. When you see job opportunities, especially in international trade, it says additional knowledge of French or Spanish is an added advantage. That's standard. So if you except you want to stick to Nigeria, stick to US, stick to UK, or if you really want to explore, try to learn French. Download Duolingo today. Start learning French. Start learning Spanish. Thank you.
In America, you need, if you know how to speak Spanish, you have a higher chance over someone that just speaks only English.
Yeah. So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramike. Thank you so much, Mr. Olubenga. This was a very insightful session, even for me personally. And we really appreciate your accepting our invitation and answering questions from many law students that have actually been conflicted. So thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
So this is the end of our session on international trade and investment law. But still in the spirit of international trade and investment, our sister center, the Lex Lata Center for Economic Policy and Research, will be hosting a short seminar coming up soon, which is actually our annual Lex Lata Economic Summit. And I would like to invite the head of the planning committee for that seminar to just come and give us a few words. You know, we've already learned that we should learn and keep learning. So this is another opportunity for us to learn. So Zulu, are you on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, thank you very much, Ewalua, and thank you to the speakers. I think it's great, like a great segue into what I'm about to announce. My name is Chizulu Wolo. I'm the project head for the Lex Lata Annual Economic Summit. And we'd like to invite, first off, the Lex Lata Center for Economic Policy and Research is a unit of the Lex Lata Group. So we're a research, advocacy, and advisory organization that's dedicated to the critical study and analysis of Africa's economies. And this year we'll be having the first ever edition of the Lex Lata Annual Economic Summit. And the summit is designed to bring together scholars and other stakeholders in the economics industry to discuss topical economic issues in Africa. So the theme for this year's summit is the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, development implications in a post-COVID-19 world. And I know that somebody mentioned something about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you should definitely tune in on the 6th of August on Saturday at 11 a.m. and it will hold virtually via Zoom. So Ewalua will put the link in the chats. And we'll be having, as you can see in the flyer, we'll be having a lot of amazing speakers. First off, we'll be having Mr. Emmanuel Nugo, who's actually our moderator. He's a researcher at the Center for the Study of Economies of Africa. We have Ms. Rose Runo, who's a senior gender and trade expert at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. Ms. Hannah Getachew, who is a doctoral candidate at the Dixon Poon School of Law, King's College, London. So for everyone, I assume that everyone is a law student here or a lawyer. So if you're interested in looking at the legal angle of this theme, you should definitely tune in. And of course, we have Ms. Mandisa Vizuba, who's a policy analyst, seasoned economist, and independent researcher with considerable expertise in Africa. So yes, please join us on Saturday, 6th of August, if you're interested. Thank you. I'll put the link in the bio or in the chat section.
Thank you very much, Zulu. I'll be dropping the link in the chat box soon. But right now, I would like to call on the Executive Director of the Lex Lata Center, person of Dr. Oluwole Kuminji, to give the closing remarks. Dr. Kunuji, are you on the call? All right, it's 3 p.m. already.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so I want to say a big thank you to everyone who actually stayed through, and we appreciate everyone for actually coming in and staying till this time. We are very confident that you all got value for your time, and we hope to see you again next year at the Lex Lata Career Seminar 2023. But until then, we would say that you should connect with us on LinkedIn at the Lex Lata Center for International Law and Comparative Constitutionalism in Africa. Connect with us on Instagram at the Lex Lata Center. You will find the recording of this session on YouTube whenever maybe you need some clarity or some things and you need to go back. So thank you very much for staying tuned, and it's goodbye from here. We have officially come to the end of the seminar. Thank you all so much and have a great day. Bye.